Hello, and welcome to One Stop Co-op Shop, your one stop for co-op news and playthroughs. And today we are playing through nothing. We're actually talking about GenCon. What's up, Terence?
How's it going? It's not Friday.
It is not Friday. It is Tuesday when we are not playing Marvel Champions. Although we will probably talk a little bit about it, but not as much as you think we will. So, and I'm here with Jerry. What's up, Jerry?
Hey, all. It's also not Saturday.
It is also not Saturday. Yes.
This is crazy.
Yeah. No, I got two co-hosts on their unusual off days. So, things are off the rails already. So get ready for some wildness and some craziness. I will warn you, we're going to be talking about GenCon today. So we're going to be talking about a lot of games, most of which will be cooperative, some of which will not be, though. And when they're not cooperative, I'll try to talk about their solo mode if I've played them. And we didn't play everything together. So we'll talk about some stuff we didn't play together as well. And just kind of cover it all. So if you don't like those like mashup shows where you hear everything, don't worry about it. We already got your download or your review. So you're more than welcome to leave now. But if you're in here for the ride, we look forward to talking to you about some new stuff and some stuff that's been around for a little bit. Y'all ready?
I'm ready.
All right, so before we get started, I want to talk about a couple games we played. Yes, Terence, are you on like delay or am I on fast forward? What's going on?
It's during the week. Maybe his brain's on delay.
Nice. All right.
I don't know. It might just be delayed because it's real time for me.
Oh, well, then yeah, it's delayed.
Got it. A lot of games are just Marvel Champions is what it seems like, said Nick. Yes, so we met Nick, and that'll be part of our discussion today. But I do want to talk about a couple games we played with Mike last Saturday. And let's start with Skulls of Sedlik, which is a small 18-card button-shy game. Terence, have you tried that one?
I have not.
So what this is a game where you literally just have 18 cards. They have skulls on it, and it does play solo. That's part of the reason we're talking about it, although we did not play it solo. But yeah, it's 18 cards with skulls on them. You make 6 piles of cards. On your turn, you can literally choose one of the face-up skulls to add to like this pyramid. It's a 3x2x1 pyramid. You're starting in front of yourself. So you can take one of the cards and add it to your pyramid. Or you can flip over 2 cards, choosing one of them to add to your pyramid. So basically, you're taking a card every turn. It could be either a quote-unquote somewhat random card or one of the face-up cards. And you're trying to like put things near each other or only have one thing per row or various things like that. So, Jerry, what are your quick thoughts on the Skulls of Sedlik?
Well, for an 18-card game, like these button-shy games are, I liked it. I think it isn't great with the 3-player, and I'm not sure. I can't remember which way I thought it would be better, with fewer players or more players. I think fewer, actually. Because at some point it didn't seem like there was a whole lot of choice going on
right.
with the player count we had. But, I mean, for a game that's done in 10 minutes, it's a lot of fun.
Cool. And, I enjoyed that one a lot, too. For what it was. And Mike said it was really good solo as well. So definitely look into that if you're looking for one of those. I mean, Button Shy had some popular stuff with, what's the other one? Have you played the other one, the city building
Sprawlopolis.
one? Sprawlopolis. Have you played that one, Terence? Shaking your head doesn't work on a podcast.
Okay. I think that one's probably...
Go for it, man.
I don't know if I'm still delayed by a lot. I think that's probably the game that put them on the map for me and probably most other people, right? Sprawlopolis and then Agropolis is their farming kind of standalone / expansion.
I actually think I like this better. Now, I didn't play it solo. Mike said the solo was interesting because you're making 2 different pyramids for yourself and just trying to get, I think there was a score range or matrix or whatever. So it seemed kind of interesting. I mean, I enjoyed it. It's for what it is, right? It's 18 cards. Not a ton of like, huge epic choices here. But speaking
it's not quite as good as Sprawlopolis, but it's pretty good.
Yeah. But speaking of huge epic choices, we played Kites next. And Kites, if you don't know it, it's first of all, we saw it last year and we talked about it a little bit when we were at PAX, but it is basically a sand timer game where you have 7 different sand timers in front of you, all with different colors and that empty at different rates. And you're basically playing cards to tell you when to flip those sand timers. So you only have a hand size of 3. When it comes to your turn, you play a card. If it has 1 color, you flip that sand timer over. If it has 2 colors, you have to flip both of them. And you're basically just trying to keep all the kites in the air at the same time, which, as you can probably guess, is sometimes hard to do. So, Jerry, I know you love real-time games. I know you love speed games. I know you love sand timers. Let us know what you think of this one.
Yeah, I'm not the target audience of a real-time game. I mean, I guess it was fine for what it is, but games where people are, reaching across the table and yelling at each other and, trying to get people to do things, it's just not my jam. One thing I would note about the game is one of the sand timers, actually probably the most important one, the white one, was all kinds of messed up component-wise. Like one of the ends of the sand timers was not glued in correctly and it was tilted, so flipping it over, it was draining sand at a different rate, and it was more difficult to make sure it was standing upright, and in a real-time game that's not great. But so I don't know if that's going to be a common issue or it's just happened to be the copy that we got. But yeah, this one's not my favorite, although I could see why people like it. It is certainly family friendly and you can engage with kids on it very easily.
Yeah, and there were other things that could make the game harder. As with a lot of these games, there are like negative cards you can put in. I think it's called a wind gust or something, where you have to announce it when you draw it into your hand, and then the next time it comes around to your turn, you have to play it. And it basically says flip every single sand timer over. So there's some interesting, fun stuff that you can do with that as well.
Interesting at least.
Well, yes. And so we ended up playing that with my kids. They really liked it, and I like that one as well. So for me, it is it's a huge win, but I do like games like 5 Minute Dungeon and things like that. So, I mean, mileage may vary depending on what your thoughts on these real-time games are. All right, so the last one is a kind of a dungeon crawler. It's called Stars of Akarios. And it's basically kind of like X-Wing, but not really, because it's on a hex map. But you can do all these maneuvers, and you're maneuvering your spaceship around, shooting down other spaceships. But it is also like a dungeon crawl. You're leveling up. You level up your ship. You level up your pilot, or pirate.
Arr.
Yes. Yeah. So that one is Yeah, so that one was interesting. I really liked it, but Mike said that we played the most interesting part because the first couple of missions you are in your spaceship flying around doing dogfighting, shooting up little ships. I can't remember. Was there boss ships at the end as well, or were we just shooting?
There was one elite ship.
Yeah, elite ships
in one of the missions. Yeah.
Yeah, and it had stuff happening. You wanted to get to certain places, and there were a little bit of terrain on the map. So, but it did feel, unlike a dungeon crawl where you have obviously, easy control over your character's movement, it did have a little of that space movement where, you're going to tend to keep momentum. If you go in a direction, it had facing for firing. So it had some interesting stuff. I liked it way more than I thought I would. But at the same time, we didn't get to the parts where Mike said there was not his favorite parts. So there were some story parts. There were some parts where you land on a planet and you're taking your pilot out and moving them around and doing things. He said the space combat was way better than all that other stuff. So I'm sure we will do a full review on it because we definitely all, after we were done, we were like, yeah, that was really fun. We want to keep playing that one. So we will definitely have more on Stars of Akarios. Terence, you know anything about that one?
I just know that Steve was a big fan of it, and then it got renamed after the Kickstarter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was called something else originally, but I guess they had some sort of trademark issue or something.
Got it. So how about you, Jerry?
It's been popular on the Discord too. There's definitely been people posting pictures of them receiving it and playing it, so people seem to be having fun. They said there's some like flawed experiences, but people seem to be liking it.
Yeah, it borrows liberally from Gloomhaven. I think it has a lot of similarities. Um, it you even had that little modifier deck instead of dice when you're attacking something when you determine what the final damage is going to be. So there's a lot of Gloomhaven DNA in there, but it is sufficiently different, and it's definitely its own design. I wouldn't say it's like a copycat of Gloomhaven. It took some parts from it, but I enjoyed the ship combat part. I mean, I expected Peter to like the ship combat part because he's a tactical movement battling aficionado, and I like that just fine. But it's not my absolute favorite. But I had a lot of fun with it. I thought it was good. The cooperative elements were good.
And it was fast, right? The missions
and
were...
it was relatively fast. Yes, I at no point did I get bored. Like, I was always engaged in what was going on. We played, what, 2 missions?
Two missions of it. Yeah, I mean, it was the first 2 missions, so who knows, right? I mean, it could get longer and more drawn out, but it was definitely a good start. So definitely expect to hear more from us on that one, because that was definitely one of my highlights. Even though it wasn't Gen Con exactly, we haven't gotten to that yet, but but that was definitely one of my highlights of games that I played recently. So Terence, did you have anything pre-Gen Con that was new to you, or you want to just get into Gen Con coverage?
No, I don't think I had anything pre-Gen Con. I got Oathsworn, but it's still in shrink. I feel like opening a big game like Oathsworn 3 days before Gen Con is not the way to go.
Now, did you get the miniatures, or so the 4 boxes?
Yeah, I mean, this was back in, I feel like 2019 or something when I backed it, when I was young and stupid and thought I had shelf space. And then I think now I would probably get the standees one, but it's like 4 boxes, right? Like, all the miniature boxes are the same size as the base box. So
yeah, a little bit smaller, but then, yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, and then you have 2 mystery boxes too on top of that. I don't know. I have major regrets for having FOMO basically on the all-in.
Yeah, no, I would say I would have been probably happier with the standee version. Not that the miniatures aren't great, not that it isn't awesome, but I mean, it takes up so much space and it's so big. And unlike other games, and we'll talk about this a little bit later. I mean, we're going to talk about gameplay in a little bit because we did end up playing it at Gen Con. But the big thing for me is you don't get the standees. And in a lot of these games, when you get the miniature version, they still send you the standees, but the miniatures actually take up some of the space that the standees would have been in the main box. So, yeah, you don't even have an option of playing with standees. And the benefit of standees is it's 1 box. Literally everything fits in 1 box if you have the standees.
Whereas, one really, really heavy box.
Oh, it's super duper heavy. That is for darn sure. I'm pretty sure it's like 30 pounds. But, I mean, it's not 4 giant boxes. I mean, 1 super heavy box, which, I mean, that 1 box is super heavy anyway, still would have been better than 1 super heavy box and 3 super giant boxes, at least for me.
I think the standees must make the box way more, right? Like that. I feel like packing all the things in 1 box has to weigh more than the like.
Well, you'd think, but those miniatures, like when I was messing around with them, they are solid. They didn't hollow out the miniatures, so like that rat broodmother, I think it was, is a chunky beast. Pretty darn heavy, so solid plastic might be probably equivalent weight to the standees.
Although you only have a couple of minis in the box.
Yeah, so exactly. That's what I was saying. Like you only have very select amount of minis in the base box, so jamming all the cardboard into 1 box, I imagine, weighs a little bit more.
Yes.
Yeah, right. Maybe.
All right, well, let's actually get to Gen Con then. So Wednesday, let's talk about our travel day, which is Wednesday. We did play some games that night, so we'll get to that in a minute. But Terence, you want to tell us about your experience getting into Gen Con?
It was a disaster. I was doing connecting flight, and my I guess first leg got delayed, and so that cut my connection from a comfortable hour to 10 minutes to make the next flight, and I had no faith that I would be able to make it. And it was not the last flight out, but I think probably because of Gen Con, like there were no seats on any flight to Indianapolis on Wednesday. basically, at least on United. And so I spent a bunch of time with travel agent or like the customer service, and it's very much your mileage may vary depending on the agent you're talking to. So the third agent I got actually was able to get me on an American flight, which was a direct flight out of Austin. So I ended up getting there like hours earlier. But when I got off the phone at like 9:30 something, the flight was at like 10 something. And so I had to repack my bags because I have like status on United and stuff. So I was checking a bag in case I wanted to like buy stuff and then check it on the way home. But I don't have any status on American, so I repacked all my bags into a smaller carry-on and within like 10 minutes, and then like basically was out the door and got to the airport. And of course, now you have a carry-on with a bunch of like all these like cards for like LCGs I had, and anytime you bring that through an X-ray thing, there's like a 50-50 chance they think it's a bomb.
Yep.
And so
that happened to me.
So they literally unpacked my carry-on of like every Marvel Encounter card that I had of like those BCW boxes, and they literally opened every single one, looked through like a bunch of the cards for each one in case I was like hiding something, and did that for every single box. So it was definitely not my favorite travel experience, but I end up there, and I'm glad because I think the earliest flight would have got me in at like 1 p.m. on Thursday if I had to fly out the next day.
Yeah, and we ended up driving up, and it was about 8.5 hours. Pretty steady flight or drive, not too bad, not too many problems. So any car stories, Jerry? Was there fun stuff I was asleep for while I was driving?
No, just a few beeps from your car as you were veering left and right on the road.
Yeah.
Other than that, pretty uneventful.
Yep. And so when we got there, it was time for lines. So Jerry was supposed to be sent his badge, but they never sent it to you. So we had to stand on not only the COVID line, which, by the way, I'm super happy GenCon did. I will say, with all the thousands of people I saw there, in the convention center itself and in the stadium, I only saw 5 people not wearing masks, I think. I mean, out of 50,000 plus people, that was pretty good. People were doing well. Now, once you got outside and were in the food truck lines and stuff, people weren't wearing their masks outside. But, I mean, I was pretty proud of GenCon for that. But the line itself was an unmitigated disaster. With all that being said, it was a disaster.
Well, I wouldn't say it was unmitigated. There were some good points about it, but it was not great.
Yeah, so we get there and we're standing on this line to get our COVID badge. So they said you had to get your COVID badge before you could pick up your regular badge. And then when we got downstairs to get our regular badge later, they're like, "Oh no, just kidding. You can come here first. The lines upstairs are crazy." We're like, yes, they are.
Yeah, we know.
Thanks for telling us after we waited in that line. But the big funniest thing that happened there was we're standing in line, and all of a sudden this person's there with this is the end of the line sign, and they usually do that so people can find the end of the line and know where to go. But this lady was literally standing in the middle of the line, like like in front of us. And so people are going, "What's going on?" And they're telling people like, "No, you can't be here. We're closing the line for a little bit. Like, you have to come back in like 30 minutes, and then we'll reopen the line." And
which makes absolutely no sense, by the way.
Well, I mean,
0 sense.
Yes. So we're like, well, there's this huge line that's going around the corner, and if they're opening the line in 30 minutes, this line's still going to be here. So
yes.
we just didn't leave the line. And so the best part, we're standing in this line behind this person that has this sign that's like, "This is the end of the line."
End of the line, right?
And we've got a huge line of people behind us. And like people are coming around the corner. They're like, "Hey, why is that person on the end of the line sign?" Like clearly walking with the line, saying that it's the end of the line. And then the best part is they turn around and start walking back past us in this entire line. And they go, "Welcome to the line." And we're like, what? As if we weren't standing in line literally the whole time. So that was my favorite part. So we'd heard other people say they left the line. So we called Terence immediately and said, "Don't believe the end of the line sign. It's a fake."
So that said, I mean, beyond the the poor communication and the random end of the line person moving around seemingly at a whim. The line did move pretty fast for the number of people who are in it. Like once you could see the actual booths where they were doing the vaccination check. People were pretty much going through there very rapidly. So they were pretty efficient in actually getting the vaccination checks and the bands on the wrists and everything. It's just the line management part was chaotic.
And I mean, there's 50,000 people. Just as a reminder, like GenCon released their numbers, it was over 50,000 people. So, and they'd never had to do this before. Every other time, they haven't had COVID check-in. Maybe they did it last year, but I'm sure the numbers weren't at all what they were this year.
No, I think they were like half last year. They scaled it down, I think.
Right. So, Terence,
but this year, even if people got their tickets mailed to them, they still had to be in that COVID line. So It was literally, everybody getting in that line at some point. Yeah,
so Terence did get his tickets mailed to him. And so what was your COVID line experience?
It took about an hour. Even though it was moving, it's just so many people, right? So I think one of the like defeating things about the line was like, it's like you hug the wall on the left side and then eventually you turn around and then the left side is like the right line for you, and that's when you're going the right direction, right, towards the room and not away from it. But it was I think it was like 5 or 6 rooms in the convention center. Like you just walk through a hallway and you'd open up to another room and you're just like, oh, it still is going. And like it just took a long time to get to that halfway point.
Yeah, it was definitely circling around and around that upper floor for sure.
I think they have them turn corners on purpose just so you have hope that when you turn that corner, that's the end of it. And then you turn the corner and you're like, oh no, but maybe it's that corner right ahead. Yeah. Because that happens like 10 to 12 times.
Yes, I mean we definitely were going around and around in circles. So to be fair, all right, so we arrived at 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. To be fair, PBCQ says we arrived at 11:30 a.m. and had no line for either vaccine, band, or the badge. So, yeah.
Yeah, but we would have had to leave at 2 in the morning to do that, so that wasn't happening.
Yeah, when we had...
And we would have died somewhere in the middle of Ohio as Peter fell asleep.
Yes, yes, on an 8.5-hour drive, yeah. No, I'm glad I got a good night of sleep the night before. So that was probably, for me, the biggest negative was we had to wait on 2 1-hour lines. But again, that being said, I mean, the lines were moving pretty fast the whole time. So we got through there pretty quickly and then got to a little bit of gaming that night. And I know that was Terrence's favorite night of games, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Well, I got to meet Henry, so it was pretty good.
Yes. Oh, I forgot. Henry played with us that night. So we played Hansa Teutonica, because I mentioned it to Henry, who we mentioned in previous podcasts, and I'm sure he'll be listening to this one, so I'm sure he'll have comments for me. But he is the designer of Parks and Trails. Super duper nice guy. Love Henry. Yep. And so we ended up playing Hansa Teutonica because I mentioned it in front of him. He's like, oh, I love that game. So I hadn't played it in years, and I know Jerry hadn't played it in years, and Terence had never played it. And let's get the negatives out of the way. Terence, what'd you think?
I learned a lot about privilege and taxation. I feel like that's the summary of that game for me. And I also learned you can beat people with only 2 actions if you commit.
Oh, that was me that got beat, by the way. I mean,
yep.
Jerry almost lapped the 3 of us, but...
I wouldn't go that far.
But Henry and Terence were tied for second and 1 point ahead of me. They pipped me by 1. I came in third. Although I don't think you guys, or fourth or whatever. I don't think you guys thought I was that close, though. I ended up pulling out a bunch of endgame scoring points at the end, but not quite enough to pull into second or third.
You did okay for having no discernible strategy.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's me, Mr. No Discernible Strategy.
I mean, I felt like Peter's strategy was to block everyone else from getting 3 actions.
I mean, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Like you got 3 actions really early, Jared. Like Peter decided not to get 3 actions and decided to tax the road, and then you got 3 actions, and then he literally blocked Henry, and it remained that way for like 3 turns. And I was just like, you're literally just letting Jerry get ahead because he has 1 more action than everyone else.
Yeah, I didn't mind.
Hey, I got okay so what you're saying is I got the assist. So Jerry got the win. I got the assist.
Okay, that's fine.
And
I'll take
everybody
that.
else was not doing as well. So for those of you who don't know, Hansa Teutonica is the Euroiest of Euro games. It's definitely like getting cubes to place on the board. Although there is a lot of player interaction in this one. So there's a lot of blocking other people, as Terence said. But you can knock other people out. So there is a cost to doing it. But you can certainly get wherever you want as long as you're willing to pay the tax for it. So it can be a at least seemingly mean game the first couple times you play. But from what I understand, there's a solo mode for this one. I have not played it yet, but it is a very interesting game. And if they do the solo mode, make it a fun, interesting, like basically block you at every corner, I could see this one being fun even in solo.
It's a fun game. I like it. It is a very aggressive Euro. As most Euros are not, but that Hansa Teutonica is. But it is very dry and themeless.
So going back to PBCQ, they said they got their Tuesday, by the way. So that was
okay.
Tuesday at 11:30 a.m. There was no line. Well, yes, I can imagine 2 days before the con started, there wouldn't be a line. I mean, there was an industry day on Wednesday, but and Nick said there was no line Friday evening when I got there. Well, yeah.
Well, that's because you missed most of the con, Nick.
Yes. I mean, there was literally just Saturday and Sunday at that point.
Only half the con. Let's be fair, Jerry.
Well, Sunday closes early.
Yes. So
well, he caught part of Friday too, right? So,
oh, okay. All right.
Yes. So
yeah. I imagine if I went in when I landed on my earlier flight and I didn't wait for you guys and then showed up late because of a work thing, I bet there would have been less of a line Wednesday afternoon when I got in at like 2 or something.
Yeah.
Probably. Yeah.
So then Jerry went to bed. By the way, so my con's a little bit weird, and I should have brought this up earlier, but I'll bring it up now. My con's a little weird because this is the first time I've ever brought my son to a convention. My son's 14, so it's not like he's a little kid I'm dragging around. But my con is a little bit disjointed, so you'll notice I didn't get to play a lot of new games at this. Friday was my big new game day. But, I'm going to be talking a lot about painting with my son and walking the hall with him and showing him the football stadium and things like that. So we did a lot of that kind of stuff. So I do apologize. I don't have as many new things as I normally would. But also, I got some family time, so I don't regret it at all. But I just wanted to point that out, kind of up front here a little bit too. So my con experience is a little bit different because of that. At this point, Jerry ended up going back to the room because it was probably around midnight or so. And
it was after midnight.
and Terence and I did what we do. We played Marvel Champions. And
that's not a new game for you?
Not a new game. Everybody knows one of my favorite games of all time. What I'm going to do is say right here every time I mention Marvel Champions, except maybe we'll talk a little bit about the new stuff here, but I'm going to say go join our podcast this Friday. We're going to have a Marvel Champions recap, a GenCon recap at the end where we just talk about the Marvel Champions stuff we did. So stay tuned Friday for more Marvel Champions talk.
You mean the stream, not the podcast, right?
Yeah, is that the stream or the podcast?
Yes, sorry. So I'll probably cut this out for the podcast. But yes. So if you're listening to the podcast, go listen to any of our Marvel Champions live plays, and you can hear more about anything we think about Marvel Champions. But yes, if you specifically go to the Heavy Metal podcast, which is or live stream, then you'll hear us talking about GenCon at the end. So if you want to hear more about Marvel Champions, that's the best place. But I didn't want to turn this into a Marvel Champions podcast because it certainly could be as much Champions as we played this weekend. So that's Wednesday night. Any other experiences you guys had that I left out?
Just food trucks, right? That was about it. Food trucks Wednesday night.
I don't even remember what I got Wednesday night from the food.
You
trucks.
got tacos and not island noodles like everyone else.
Yeah, the taco.
I got island noodles.
The tacos was a bad idea. I'll just say it here up front. Like when you go to the food truck line and there's food trucks that's empty and you're like, oh, I'll just go there so I can get the food quicker. Yeah, there's a reason those lines are empty usually. Yeah, it wasn't terrible, but it was not great by any stretch of the imagination.
The empty cupcake truck was pretty good though. And
no, the cupcake truck was great. We did not get it Wednesday, but we certainly got it later in the week.
I was just commenting because the line is usually empty for the cupcake truck too.
Oh really? Oh yeah, no, that's great. The flying cupcake or whatever. Yeah, no. Definitely check that place out if you can. All right, so Thursday. Remember how I said we weren't going to talk about Marvel Champions? Guess what? I lied. So we started off with a content creator only demo of the new Mutant Genesis set. So Terrence, you were part of that. What did you think?
That was really cool. I had no idea besides not really knowing what to expect besides they were gonna bust out the box and you know Caleb was there, the designer of the game, lead designer, and there was only two groups, right? It was our group of four with Dale, who's another Marvel Champions content creator, and I don't remember the other fellow's name. And then I think there's Board Game Quest was the other 4-person group. So it was just the two groups. So it was actually pretty small compared to the I think 20 play groups during the normal ticketed event throughout the week. And I think he was also getting interviewed by Polygon during our game session too.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I mean, it was pretty small and intimate, which was really cool. And I also did not know that we were privy to the precons of the two new heroes in that box that the rest of the con would not get access to.
Well, yeah, and it was weird because you said there was going to be precons at our normal session, so I thought it was the exact same.
Well, that's what the Fantasy Flight. So that is what the Fantasy Flight website said,
right?
But that is not what the GenCon event said. So apparently there was a miscommunication between marketing and I guess everyone else from Asmodee and Fantasy Flight.
That never happens in companies.
Yeah, it never happens. Left hand, right hand. So I think a lot of people were actually pretty upset. I remember Caleb was saying later in the during Gen Con that people were generally upset that they didn't get to play the new heroes because it was literally advertised on the homepage.
Well, right, and they paid for those tickets.
Yeah, and you pay $6 for those tickets.
Yeah,
but we got to play the Sabertooth scenario, and unfortunately, Peter and I did not get to play Shadowcat or Colossus because we actually brought decks, and the other two people did not. So kind of felt bad making them play literally the starter decks from the core set, which were the only other decks that Caleb had.
Well, and here's the other thing that I realized or thought. I was like, oh, we're going to be playing again in a couple of days. We'll just play those precons then. What I didn't realize is that no, we wouldn't. So we didn't know either that we weren't going to have the opportunity.
Yeah, I think we found out 5 minutes after because I think I made that comment and asked, and Caleb said that this was a special thing for us and that it would not be available during the ticketed event. But it's just it's not like you can basically rip that out of someone else's hand mid game, right? So
yeah. So here's what I'll say about the new expansion. It's called Mutant Genesis. It is X-Men. The two heroes in it are going to be, what's that Iron guy's name?
Colossus and Shadowcat.
Colossus, and the other one's going to be Shadowcat. I don't know much about Shadowcat at all, except for the fact that she's stealthy and she can
phase through things.
Yeah, so she can phase through things. She does, and I think they did the mechanics very well in the phasing. The first villain in the box, close your ears, fast forward 15 seconds if you don't want to know, is Sabertooth. And we actually ended up playing against him in both of our games, so we're kind of saving ourselves from having to discuss it again later. He does a lot of healing in there. I'm not going to spoil the gimmick to the mission, but the bottom line is he does heal after every time he activates. So he does, especially in a 4-player game, he does a lot of healing. So you definitely need to kind of build up to a point where you can just blast them away, which is very different from not only any other villain in the game, but any other villain that is certainly a first villain in a campaign. So he seemed to play a little bit longer, at least in both of our games. We didn't even finish that first game.
We made the mistake of playing expert just out the get-go.
I may have suggested that.
Yeah, it just took longer. But yeah, and then Colossus's protection precon, and then Shadowcat is an aggression precon.
Yeah. So we had fun with that, but for those of you looking forward to X-Men joining the Marvel Champions universe, guess what? It is your time. And I guess the only big other thing we noted was that, the standard cards that you get in every set, the strength, the Genius, and what's the other one?
Energy.
And Energy have new art now, so it's all X-Men related art. So that's kind of cool. You're getting the same cards that you had, but at least you finally got some with new art on it. So it's all X-Men themed. So everything in the box is X-Men themed, which is kind of neat.
Yeah, we learned from Caleb that as much as it was they wanted to have cool new art for all this stuff, it was more so because of a licensing thing. Like, apparently you're not allowed to cross the streams. You can't have Avengers and X-Men in the same box and sell it. Like that is actually a thing that would cost them the license if they did that.
Yeah, Mary says, I think they should have done an X-Men core set for Marvel Champions. Yeah, I mean, you've got most of what you need in there to play, except for, of course, the tokens. That's the big thing. And the standard encounter set, which they probably should redo at some point anyway. Not only so it is, X-Men themed, but also so that you could have more than one. So when you go to a con or whatever else, you have more than one standard encounter set that you could bring with you. So that would have been cool if they had redone the standard and expert cards. I mean, that and the tokens are really all you're missing to be able to play. All right, Jerry, you've been quiet for a while. What were you doing while we were playing? And my son was with us for that, by the way, also. So I did not just leave him in the room the whole time. But I will say Thursday was a day that was a lot of media obligations. So he did end up video gaming quite a bit on Thursday. Well, I'll talk more about my time with him later. But yeah, at this point, he was still with us. And Jerry, what were you doing?
Well, I started off Thursday morning walking the hall a bit. So wanted to see if there was any, because I hadn't really heard of any new things coming out at GenCon that really, really interested me that much. But I decided to see, maybe I'll discover something as I'm walking around. First thing I noticed was the line. So the maker of Planet Unknown is a small company called Adams Apple Games, I think. And they had a pretty small booth kind of tucked away. But the line coming from them was just absolutely ridiculous. They sold out of Planet Unknown, the deluxe Kickstarter edition, and pretty early on Thursday morning, and they didn't get any more in. So congratulations to them for having such a success. But for those that don't know, Planet Unknown is a game where you have essentially a lazy Susan filled with tiles of different shapes, kind of like a polyomino. Well, exactly like polyomino. And then each player has their own planet that they're having rovers move around on, and each turn you select one of these Tetris-like pieces and place it on your board. And there's various rules surrounding that. But Peter and I played it on Tabletop Simulator, I think. Yep. And it was quite good. I enjoyed it a lot. Now, it was a competitive game. I do believe there's a solo mode.
Yep.
Is that right,
yes.
Peter? So
simultaneous, even, right?
It is simultaneous. So one player chooses which well they want to pull their polyomino from, and then just by virtue of having moved the lazy Susan, you have to pull one from the one that's directly in front of you, and everybody does that and places it and adjusts their tracks and everything at the same time.
Well, and
so it goes.
Not to interrupt here, but that's one of the coolest things for me is it's not just placing polyominoes, but each polyomino represents like two different types of terrain, and those terrain types like level you up on this like tech track. And that for me was the coolest part of it, the thing that separated it from most other polyomino games, that and the fact that it plays up to 6 players simultaneously, so you're all playing at the same time. So Terence and I actually played this game when we were at Con of Heroes as well at Colin's house, and we had 5 players that day. So what are your thoughts on it?
I thought it was cool. I mean, I don't really like competitive e-games, but I like the polynomial puzzle, and I think you had a choice of 2 tiles right in front of you as well, so it's not like you're forced to just take
each well has 2 different tiles in it.
So that's kind of neat too, that like you can't completely, well, I guess you can kind of screw someone, but like you at least get a choice of 2 different tiles, which I thought was kind of nice about that. Do you know how many copies they had there? Like, I mean, it sounds like it was sold very, very fast.
I don't. The line was stretching back like several aisles within Gen Con, like almost immediately after the hall opened. So I don't care for to be in the crush of humanity for the opening of the doors. I did that my first Gen Con, I think in 2016, and
The bull run or whatever it's called.
Yeah, the running of the bulls, I think they call it. But
yeah,
I am not interested in repeating that activity, especially with COVID going around. So I wandered into the dealer hall probably around 10:15 or so, and the line was just ridiculous. And he said there was going to be an additional 100 copies that were still on a boat waiting to come in. The impression I got is that he had over 100 copies to start, and they were all gone. So, like I said, congratulations to him. I think he wasn't expecting that. I think he was probably expecting to sell out, but probably not quite as quickly as he did. Because there weren't too many other lines that were that long.
And I will say that my son and I also stood up top when they opened the doors for Gen Con, and it is such a cool experience if you've never seen it before, just to see thousands, tens of thousands of people walking in through the doors as it opened. They were all walking. Don't run, just walk. And it's just,
they were power walking and pushing and.
Well, yes, there's that. But I mean, it's such a cool experience if you've never seen it before. So we did go up top, and there's like hundreds of people up top too, just watching this massive humanity go in, and that's what we did. So that was a really neat experience as well. So anything else you did before the next game we played, Jer?
Yeah, then I had a media appointment with CGE. They had a large room reserved on the second floor where they were doing ticketed demos. They had their own little store in there. And then they had an area set up for media demos. So I went up there. I had an appointment and wanted to take a look at Starship Captains, which is a game they have coming up. Got to look at the Galaxy Trucker expansion that's coming out shortly. And then I took a look at another game called Deal with the Devil. So going back to the Starship Captains game, it's very obviously an homage to like your Star Trek games where you have a ship, you have a crew, you proceed through the galaxy completing missions. You can upgrade your ship, you can upgrade your crew. The main mechanic is you will have crew members that will come out into the bridge, and once they've done their action on the bridge, you put them back in the queue. So it's almost like a modified rondel kind of thing, only with actual figures that represent them. And so they kind of queue up, and as they pop out of that chute, you get to place them in on your ship to take actions. Didn't seem to be a lot of direct. I don't think there was any direct player combat, but you could like block people from getting to where they want to go. Try to complete things before them, that sort of thing. So it was very much a Euro style game, but it looked kind of interesting. I want to see more about it. Now it's listed as 2 to 4 players, but there was nothing that I saw in the brief demo and overview that I got that would seem to be incompatible with having a solo mode. Nice. So I don't know if they'll have one out of the box, but I'm sure people will come up with, if nothing else, people will come up with solo rules for it. I'm sure Mike will probably come up with a solo variant.
I'm sorry, I missed that. Is it a competitive game normally, or is it cooperative?
Yes, it is a competitive game. Yeah, 2 to 4 players. It is not cooperative.
Gotcha.
So that was Starship Captains. It's releasing at Essen this year and PAX Unplugged for those in the United States. Then I got a demo of the new Galaxy Trucker expansion. The expansion takes a lot of the things that come in the previous edition Galaxy Trucker. I think it was the big box expansion. Is that what it's called?
Yep.
But it has a series of those modules, and it adds a couple of new ones as well. And the difference is this is compatible with the new version.
And the big thing is for the new version, it was like, I remember when we first saw Galaxy Trucker years and years ago, before Czech Games even had it, maybe, it was an $80 game. And this was like back when games were like $50 max. So, I mean, Fantasy Flight obviously had some exceptions, but like, and we were talking to Zev about it he was still with Z-Man at the time. And he said, yeah, I don't know that people are going to pay $80 for this game. And I was like, yeah, I don't know either. So the big thing about the newest Galaxy Trucker is it's $30, right?
I think it's 40
or 40 now. Yeah, I mean everything prices have gone up, but yeah, I mean bottom line is like it's way cheaper than it's ever been before. And if you've never played Galaxy Trucker, it is a super fun, chaotic game. I am surprised that Jerry likes it actually because of the real time nature, because of the chaos involved. But yeah, no, one of my favorites for sure.
Yeah, I've always really enjoyed Galaxy Trucker. Now the new version, I think the components are a bit scaled down, and they're not quite as high quality as they were for the first edition. But you're also getting it for like half the price, right?
And everything's in there, right? I mean, it's not like they took out stuff. It's just
no, they didn't take out gameplay. No,
right?
No. Yeah. Terence. So this edition has a bunch of new ships, or this expansion has a bunch of new ships, has a new alien type, with special powers. It looked kind of interesting, and I think Mike had done a solo variant for Galaxy Trucker at some point. A while ago. I think we have a video on that, if you want to look it up. But yeah, that was interesting.
Although
as well.
To be honest, Mike said it wasn't very good, his solo variant, and he suggested you get the app if you you want to play Galaxy Trucker. The app's actually really good as well.
The app is very good, yes, and even the app has sort of a little story going with it too. And then the last one I took a look at.
Well, hold on, before we go any further, Terrence, have you played Galaxy Trucker? What are your thoughts?
I have. It's been a long time. I also have the app. It's fine. I guess it's a good game.
Oh gosh, we gotta have
a review from Terence.
Rave.
We gotta have a pooper in every party. Boo, Terrence. All right, never mind. I'm not asking you any more questions today.
I'm fine with that.
Before we go any further, also, Planet Unknown. Nick was talking about in the chat that there is a version available on. It's a online play site, so if you don't care about online play, you can skip forward 15 seconds, called Sovereignty. And actually they asked us to do like a review or not a review, but like a demo of how to play it. And honestly, I didn't do it because I didn't see much value in it at the time. It was more expensive than BGA, and it still may be. And they didn't have any unique games was really the big problem I had with it. So they were asking you to pay more for something that I thought was fine quality. I think there's digital voice implementation and stuff like that. So they were offering more features. They were trying to be more feature centric than the current stuff that's out there, but they really didn't have more games. But Planet Unknown, as far as I know, well, I'm looking at it right now. It's SOVRANTI, Sovereignty.com. They do have Planet Unknown. So if you want to play it, you don't want to wait for it to come in, whatever else. There is a way to play it online there. They also have stuff like Isle of Cats, Point Salad, Sushi Go Party, Forbidden Desert for those of us who are co-op fans. Even Nuclear War, Jerry, like one of our
really?
old school games. Yeah, we played a lot. Jerry and I played lots of Nuclear War through college.
Oh wow! All right, I might have to join this.
And the implementation is pretty good. I mean, it's only a couple bucks a month. It's not like it's hundreds of dollars here. And they have other games as well. So yeah, it might be worth looking into. Certainly, if you want to play some Planet Unknown, it's, I believe, the only place you can play it online. There's a TTS mod, but it was good, not great. So yeah, maybe consider doing Sovereignty, because I feel like it's probably approved by the publisher, all that stuff as well. So if you want to, support the publisher, support one of these new up and coming sites to compete with Board Game Arena or whatever else, that's a place to check it out.
Yeah, I wonder if it's a response to Asmodee buying Board Game Arena.
Maybe. I mean, the implementations are really good there. So I would say it's it had to be in progress before Asmodee bought. It's not like a fly by their seat of their pants, just got implemented thing. Asmodee did this, let's come up with a competitor. No, it's the quality is real good there.
Yeah, I think it's been around for like four plus years now at this point.
Oh really?
Oh no. I mean, well, they certainly didn't promote it for that long, and I will tell you, there's literally 4, 8, 12, 16, 17 games on there. So it's not I mean, slow your roll, Terrence. Slow your roll. 17 games. Let's not.
I don't think it has a ton of stuff behind it, but I think it's been in the works for a while.
Yeah. I mean, it may have been. So free on there right now. You can play Point Salad, Isle of Cats. By the way, solo as well, and Dice Miner. So
Yeah, Isle of Cats is on BGA too, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It was on both, and that was part of the reason I was like, "What am I going to promote on there?" Right? Like, they were going to give us free codes to give out. I just didn't think there was a lot to it at that time. But I will say, Planet Unknown might be worth checking out. Because it was good. It wasn't I had any problem with the thing. I just didn't see the value, like why you do that instead of Board Game Arena when you're talking hundreds of game versus at the time it was like 8 or 12 or whatever.
Oh, it's an installed app too. It's not just a web interface like BGA.
Yep. Okay.
Anyway, all right.
We spent a lot of time here, and it's only Thursday. Let's keep going.
All right. So the last game I got a demo for from CGE was Deal with the Devil. And this one is an app-supported, and there's no way there's a solo or competitive, or cooperative for this one. But basically, each player takes on a different role. They're either a human, which means they have a full soul. They're a cultist, which means they have most of a soul, or they're the devil, who has a bunch of resources but doesn't have any soul. And then there is a trading phase that's assisted by the app, because the app knows which player is which, but nobody else does. And basically players trade sets of goods or sets of resources or parts of their soul in order to get, a resource that they need. So like I said, the devil has a bunch of resources but no soul, and it's trying to collect souls from the players. And the players are trying to get the resources they need to build buildings in the town, which can increase their actions, give them more things that they can do. It seems very interesting. It was kind of difficult to really get a full grasp of it without playing it, because there is the app and the trading phase. I will say, like most of the CGE games, it is very colorful. Like CGE has a very distinctive style, where things are very bright, colorful, lots of nice art that kind of pops out. Well, nice is in the eye of the beholder, but I thought it was very pleasing to look at. And that's another one that's coming out at Essen or PAX Unplugged for those in the United States.
All right, so let's get to the big one. I think another one that people are looking forward to, which is Twilight Insurrection. And Jerry and I played this one.
No, it's not. It's Twilight Inscription.
Oh, yeah, I put Insurrection, but no, you're right. It is Inscription.
Mutant Insurrection?
Yes. Well, you know what? I also put Mutant Insurrection above it instead of Mutant Genesis for Marvel Champions. So, yeah. No. I
really set on Insurrections, aren't you?
I really was. And later, instead of Mutant Genesis, I put Mutant Resurrection. So I was just all over the place with my erections. So, who knows? But anyway, Mutant Inscription. I'm sorry, not Mutant. Twilight Inscription.
Now it's Mutant Inscription.
Yes. Twilight Inscription, to be clear. So this is the new Twilight Imperium game that they turned into a roll and write. And so we got to play that. We did not play a full game, just to be clear, but it does play 1 to 8 players. I know we had questions before. Is the 8-player game just teams or whatever? No, it is not. Everybody's playing on their own. The way they work, it's kind of like Seven Wonders, where you're playing, the wars and things like that you have are against the players to your right and your left. So they definitely took that right from Seven Wonders. But basically, you are drawing a card, which is an event card. Everybody's kind of doing what it says on the event card. Then you roll some dice, and everybody has the same set of dice that they can write on one of their boards. So here's one of the differences for me between this roll and write and any other roll and writes. You have 4 different boards, each of which does different stuff. And each time you roll you flip a card, then you roll, you're choosing one board to act on for that turn. And so you're not passing that from one to the other. So that was the thing that I think was most unique about it. I mean, there's definitely some complication to it. You would expect that in a Twilight Imperium roll and write. It's definitely a heavier one, certainly the heaviest roll and write I've played. Well, Jerry, before I get further, what are your impressions of this one?
So they really went all out in teaching the game. Like they were well prepared. They had these really big blown up versions of each individual board that they would hold up and walk you through how to do it. And they had a pretty good tutorial that certainly taught you all the elements of play going on. The only problem I had with it is they were teaching you like the mechanics of playing, but they weren't teaching you the fun of playing.
Yes.
So it wasn't until like the end of the demo that things started to click and I could see where it could be fun to play, but it wasn't, what I was doing wasn't particularly fun at the time because I wasn't really making the decisions that I think had the most fun associated with.
Well, and to be fair, our dice rolls were pretty dice rolls
they
can
were
be
uninspired.
Well, they were uninspired because we literally rolled all the same symbol, and so like we didn't really have choices. You know what I mean? It was very much that we all basically did the same thing on at least the first sheet, because like literally there wasn't much of a choice. Because we had the same role and everything else. And that would always be the case, but you don't always have to choose the same sheet. Through the tutorial, they made you choose the same sheet, but and it was pretty obvious, like if you were using the sheet, what moves were obvious. Yeah. But yeah, normally you wouldn't have to do that. You could choose any sheet even from the very beginning of the game. But you know, the designer was teaching it to us. It was their first demo, obviously. They were obviously warming him up on, again, it was a media session. We played with the Rolling Dice and Taking Names guys.
Marty Cannell.
Marty. So, yeah, I mean, it was definitely a learning game. Dale, again, the casual gamer. So if you haven't checked out his channel, check him out. Check out Rolling Dice and Taking Names as well. Both great guys. We had a ton of fun playing with them. But we said at the beginning of the game, and we warned everybody, we have commitments after this. We're not going to be able to stay for the whole game. So we knew that going in. So we both wanted to play more. In fact, we thought about buying it. We just couldn't find it to buy before, or again, it was one of those, you know, running the board.
Yeah, I heard they only had like 30 copies a day.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way you were going to get it there then. And so we didn't really have an opportunity to buy it, but we both wanted to play more. Although I'm still not sure, just like you said, whether it's good or not.
Yeah, I pre-ordered it though.
Yeah, okay.
What the heck?
Well, there you go.
So we'll have it.
But I mean, so how much was it? Just out of curiosity.
I think it retails for $65.
Yeah.
I think there's places you can find it on pre-order for like $52-ish. That's what I got it for.
And I will say the biggest negative, at least component-wise for me, is because the boards were dark, they used these markers that were like chalk markers, which basically the designer said, yeah, be careful, I got these on my clothes and it doesn't come out. Like, so it's one of those things that I noticed by the end of the weekend that I had gotten it on my arm, and he's certainly right. Like, I showered every day and I still had marker there on my arm by the end of the convention. So I mean,
it's still there.
Well, it's not there now. I mean, I got it away, but
well, that's because you shower with soap when you got home.
Well, sure. There's that. So Nick said, I found it hard to get a feel for the races or the objectives how they would really impact the game. Also, the price of 50 plus seems like a lot for a roll and write based game. I will say it felt like more than a roll and write, even though it wasn't.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot, right? It's a lot. I mean, if you and people are like, oh, does it feel like Twilight Imperium? That I think would be the other question. And I can absolutely for certain say no, not even a little bit. It feels like a roll and write set in the Twilight Imperium universe. It does not, at least to me, feel like Twilight Imperium. What are your thoughts?
I think the elements of Twilight Imperium that will come through are the different races and the race powers and stuff like that, which are things that they didn't even hand out until right before we had to leave, basically.
Yeah.
I think we got one turn with having our individual
racial powers.
Races.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's where the most Twilight Imperium parts are going to come from. The rest of Twilight Imperium, like the ships and moving them around, the way combat is handled in this roll and write is not anywhere close to that. And if what you really like is the combat in Twilight Imperium, it's not in this game.
No, you're basically drawing Tetris pieces in a area and fighting the person to your left or right based on
how many pieces you have. Yeah,
well, not even pieces. Like for each piece, you whatever points it touch, you count that up, and it's like, oh, I have 4 Tetris pieces, or my Tetris pieces touch 4 points in this sector, so my combat strength is 4. I compare that to the person on my left. I have another one on my right. I have 6 points on my right. Let's see how many wars I've won. If you win, you get a benefit, which is something usually you can spend on a different board. I mean, there is a lot of I do this on this board to do this on this board to do whatever. I get these resources to do whatever. So, and if you lose a victory point at the end of the game. So, I don't know.
And that's not to say it was terrible. I didn't play enough to say it was terrible. It's not the same as nowhere close to the combat in Twilight Imperium.
Yeah, no, the combat for me was the weakest point by a large margin. So, Terence, did you get a chance to try this one while you were there or look at it?
I did not. I didn't have a big interest in it. Not a big fan of roll and writes. And I also heard a full game is a 2-hour game. So it's a 2-hour roll and write.
That seems about right.
Which just sounds long for roll and write for me.
Yes. You are correct, sir. It does seem long to me as well. I mean, the demo, we were there for an hour and a half, and like I said, we didn't even get a real good feel for it. To be fair, it was a learning game. It was a teaching game. They were teaching 4 groups of 4 at a time, so it wasn't the easiest way to go. And I'm sure the demos got smoother and stronger as the weekend went on. But
ours wasn't the first demo. I saw them demoing before us, but we were only there for an hour though, because we left at quarter of, and it didn't really get started until quarter of. So I think we only saw an hour of the gameplay, but I didn't feel like we were halfway through.
No,
did you?
No, not even close. But the bottom line is, I also felt like we did 5 or 6 rounds of the game.
Mm-hmm. About that.
And I feel like the last 2 rounds took about 5 minutes each, and the first 4 rounds took 15 to 20 minutes each.
Yeah.
So I mean, as we were learning the different boards, he was going through everything on the boards. And so, yeah, it's just a lot to take in at first. And he didn't even explain everything before we got started. So, yeah, I think there's a big learning curve to it. And to be fair to them, they have a walkthrough, which is basically what we played in the rules. There's a separate rule book that just walks you through the first 4 turns of the game. And that's basically what we did there. So I do think it won't be as hard to teach as you think, but I do think the teach is going to take a while.
I will say kudos to Fantasy Flight / Asmodee. They were prepared to run that demo. They had the equipment, they had to set up, they had a guy with a mic'd up and everything, and it did do a very good job of teaching the mechanics of the game.
Yeah. All right, so I'm going to talk about what I did next real quick. Dan.
That was Twilight Inscription.
Yes, Twilight Inscription, not...
I'm just going to try to make Peter keep saying a name to see what new one.
Not Twilight Insurrection, not Twilight...
Well, you said it was a roll and bite at one point, which I think you might have stumbled upon a new genre that we need to explore.
Yes, well, it is what it is. All right, so the media, or the obligation I had next was AEG. I'm going to talk about a couple things real quick because I didn't get to see a whole lot there. They had a video basically talking about a bunch of games. The big one that stood out to me is Dead Reckoning. In fact, it stood out so much, and John D. Clare was in the room with us. It was a bunch of media people, but he was in the room with us, and I talked to him a little bit afterward about it. And Colin, I know, loves it as a solo game, which is Dead Reckoning, and they have a new thing on Kickstarter, so I literally backed it today. They have a new expansion. The expansion is $55 though. I mean, the base game was $75 with an expansion, and the expansion today is $55. Now, I will say they did say this expansion has over double the content of any of their other expansions. So, I mean, it is a big, hefty expansion, but I thought that was pricey. Now, it still didn't stop a million people from backing it on day one. It still did well. Yep. Have either of you played Dead Reckoning yet?
Nope. I'm interested though.
I've not. It's a 4X game.
Well, it's a pirate game. It's a quote unquote open world, but it really seems very Euro-y. I've seen a lot of videos of it. My son's into pirates right now, and so I'm super interested in trying it with him for sure. I mean, it's got the card crafting system where you're like, you got the cards and sleeves, and then you put clear cards on top of them to change the attributes of the cards. So it's kind of like deck building, but you're really just building up the cards that you have. They give you more symbols, whatever else. It seems interesting. I don't know that it's like super duper piratey or whatever else, but I don't know. It seemed interesting to me. The videos, the plays I've seen of it look really good. And Colin says the solo's excellent. He actually didn't want to play it with us at 4 players or 5 players. He doesn't think it plays. It's just too long at higher player counts.
He just doesn't want to play with you.
Well, I mean, that could have been it too, because I was super interested in it, and he's like, "Oh, we have 4 other people coming. Nope, we're not playing that."
Nope.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I just ran the Kickstarter page. It says it's a 4X swashbuckling game.
I mean, yeah, 4X is sure. I mean, as much as it can be, but it's kind of a card crafting game. All right, so Dead Reckoning was the big thing they were pushing. Like I said, I got in on the Kickstarter. The game looks interesting to me, but I just got in on the base game. I did not go in on the $260 or whatever. I did $75 for the base game and 1 expansion. So I'm looking forward to trying it and seeing how my family likes it. So the nice part is it's not real easy to get right now, and this is an easy way to get in on it. They also showed Wormholes, which is a pick up and deliver game that does have a solo mode, so I'm interested in that. Mike, I'm sure will do a video of it because I got a copy of it and I brought it home. So I didn't do much except for talk to them about how it works. It seems interesting, seems quick, which a lot of these pick up and deliver games are not. So yeah, I'm looking forward to trying Wormholes. I think it looks like it's going to look better the higher player count you get, so I'm curious how it'll play as a solo game. And then the other one, which was also a John D. Clare game that they had, was Ready, Set, Bet, which plays up to 8 players, maybe even 9. It might be 8 bettors, and then 1 person who kind of runs this horse race. So Ready, Set, Bet is a horse racing game where it's, John D. Clare said he set out to make a 0-player horse race, which basically means you have no decisions. You're basically rolling dice. So there's 1 person that'll be rolling the dice, moving horses. It's real simple. You roll a 7, the 7 horse moves 1. You roll a 7 again, the 7 horse moves again. It's very much a craps feeling when you play it. The big gimmick, mechanic, whatever you want to say, is based on the number you roll. If you roll doubles, so if you roll 5 and then 5 again, the horse moves not only 1 space the second time, but it gets a bonus move equal to like a multiplier of whatever the odds of rolling that number are. So 7 is still most likely to win, but it gives some benefits to the other horses to kind of move them ahead. It's a real-time betting game where as this one person's rolling the dice, and actually there is going to be an app for it. It's not available yet, but so that you don't have to have a dice roller person, like there'll be dice rolling on a screen and you will do, you will just follow that way, but you're betting in the middle of this race. So you have a 2 through 5 point betting chip and you basically throw it on different bets. Like there are 3 bets for any horse to win, 3 bets for it to come in second, 3 bets for it to come in third. And so if you know anything about horse racing, if you bet on the lower bets, you still pay out if they do better. So if you bet on them to come in third or show, you still win money if they win or place, which are first or second place. So there are all these betting spaces, and they have different multipliers. So if you bet on them to win, it's like a 3 times multiplier, again, depending on the odds of the horse winning, whatever else. There's lots of multipliers, but the bottom line is it's a pretty cool, and it feels a lot like craps to me, which Jerry will know this. I love craps. So like it's one of my favorite games in the world. It's a gambling game, but like this felt a lot like craps to me, except in real time. So you get that thrill, and each race is only like 5 minutes. Like, because the person's literally rolling the dice as fast as they can, calling out numbers like 7 moves up 1 space, and like people are cheering for their horses. This was definitely the hit of the AEG room, was Ready, Set, Bet. And I don't think a lot of people are talking about it at this point. But if you like that fast, frantic, like real time, get your bets in there kind of game. And it does, so there are 4 rounds, you do 4 races, and the complexity goes up, similar to Galaxy Trucker, which we talked about earlier, as the races go on. So you might get a special power after the first turn, or you might get a different way of doing things. I don't know, because we only played one round of it, but you definitely get stuff as you go along. So each race you get more and more stuff. So that was a lot more fun than I expected it to be. So if you like craps, if you like horse racing, if you like real-time craziness, that one might be fun. It almost sounded to me like what's that game that who was one of the first media creators? He had a beard, YouTube guy. He made that game where you're betting and you had the paddle you put down.
Oh, Scott Nicholson.
Scott Nicholson. He made that game that was like a real-time betting game where you're throwing cubes into cups to bid on certain things. It had that feel to me. You have these chips and you're literally throwing them on this betting board, trying to get your bets out before other people. I don't know. It was really fun. So based on the description, Terence, I can only imagine you'd hate it. So I'm going to skip you for a second. Jerry, based on that description, what are your thoughts on that one?
Sounds like it needs to be played with real money.
Oh, yes, clearly.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'd certainly try it. I mean, your description seemed to center around the excitement of not making any decisions, just rolling a die and moving a horse.
Well, yeah, I mean, that roll...
eh.
No. And again, there is an app for that roll as well, so you don't have to have somebody doing that. The real fun is in the betting. I never did the dice rolling part.
So basically just have an app simulate a horse race and you throw money.
Yeah,
on
bets.
locations.
Exactly right. As it goes along. And
it's not real money, so you don't even have the thrill of the winning cash or losing cash.
You know what? Why do I bring two
or having somebody bring around free drinks while you're doing it?
Why do I bring two people on this podcast that are no fun at all? Honestly, what's wrong with you? So Terence,
I'm just making fun of the way you described it, because I'm listening to you describe it and I'm progressively getting less interested.
All right, so Terence, we already had Debbie Downer 1. Let's hear Debbie Downer 2. Did any of that sound interesting to you?
I think it'd be cool to. I feel like you would be very good at being the announcer of this horse race.
And I do think it's
okay.
important. So, for example, one of the powers, I lied. We didn't play one race. We played two. So you had to pick between two special powers, and the one I got was anytime double ones were rolled or double sixes were rolled, snake eyes or boxcars, I got $1, right? So whenever John D. Clare, who's a designer of the game, he's rolling the dice, he's like, oh, boxcars, and me and this other guy high five because we both had boxcars, right? So or we both had the same power. So I don't know, there's definitely this feel of camaraderie, but at the same time, if a horse takes a huge lead, everybody starts throwing their bets on there really quickly. I don't know. It just has this real-time frantic pace to it, but you're not really doing a whole lot as far as controlling the outcomes. So it's I don't know. I don't know how to describe it. It was just fun for me, at least anyway.
I believe you.
And everybody that was there, by the way, of all the games they showed, there was another one too, and I can't remember the name of it. But it had one of the coolest components I'd ever seen, which you're basically, and I would pay attention to Will the Hungry Gamer. I'm sure he'll be talking about it because he actually played in that one, where you have this cube box is the best way I can explain it, and you push the button and let it go, and it drops out 9 cubes in a 3x3 pattern. And based on where those cubes are laying, you're adding buildings to your city, but you have to pick a color, and then it's almost like a roll and write where you're picking color, and you have to lay those buildings in that pattern on. So if you pick orange, wherever there's an orange building, you have to pick a spot anywhere on your board to put those 3 or 4 orange buildings, however many come out, and then everybody else has to pick a different color. So it seemed a little bit like a roll and write, but the mechanic for that was this little cube box that you're pushing. It almost felt like Camel Up, where you have that inverted pyramid where you push the button and one dice comes out and that tells you how you move stuff. This was very similar to that, except with cubes. So look forward to that one if you're interested. I mean, Will said he liked it. So and that one I believe has a solo mode as well. All right, so Terence, while we were doing that, or while I was doing that because Jerry wasn't there, what were you doing?
I went and got lunch I recommend eating while you're at Gen Con. I actually did one of the things where one of the steakhouses at St. Elmo allows you to pre-order a lunch. So I did that and just went and picked that up. So that made lunch much faster than doing the trucks, and it's like right in the mall. So it's like like a 2-minute walk from the convention center.
Nice.
You like go in, pick your lunch up, and then leave. Worked pretty well. And then I went and tried the Librarians, which like Wasteland Sniper was telling me a bunch about that game before the con and said I need to try it out. So went over there and demoed that with my coworker Andre.
So what were your thoughts on that?
It felt like a mix of Arkham Horror and like Lord of the Rings a bit, or Marvel Champions.
And you love all of those games. Like, to be fair, I'm not actually joking. I know it's hard to tell sometimes, but like literally, you love all those games.
Some more than others, but yeah. I thought I enjoyed it. I mean, we didn't even though there was no one else in the booth besides the two of us and the people working the booth, they only let us play like one turn, which was really awkward.
Sure.
It was just like basically we did one turn, they like stopped the game, and I was just like, "You're really not going to let us play more?" Which was really surprising to me, because it's not like anyone else was waiting to sit down and play.
No, they just didn't know what happens after the first round. Their demo people only got the first round training.
Yep.
They want you to run any questions.
So I did end up buying it because they had the Kickstarter version there, so you could get stuff that wasn't being sold at retail. So I ended up picking it up, and I've since read the rules, and they did not even teach me the game properly, which was great.
Nice.
So I bought the game off of like basically not the right rules, which was fun. But it's neat. They have it is like Arkham, but there aren't locations, so it's like more like Lord of the Rings where you have the scenarios you're trying to progress through. But it does have like the agenda deck and the act deck where the kind of Brotherhood, who are the enemies in the, I guess, TV show, are trying to do something, and so they have their own thing they're trying to progress independent of you. But I think some of the neat mechanics in there. So then you also have a bunch of skill checks that's like Arkham, but instead of doing like the chaos bag, they have dice, and so like you have stats for the dice you're picking up, right? And then anytime you can only have 4 on either side, so anytime you're going above 40, you take away from the other side. And then basically when you roll dice, like the successes get subtracted from the failures. So if you have a 0 at the end where everything gets subtracted, it's a failure. So you need at least like 1 success at the end to kind of pass that test. And so that's kind of how you do all your checks. Unlike Arkham, you can generally do like more than 1 damage by just rolling well. So it's very plausible on like a high die count that you can do a ton of damage on the enemy. And they didn't tell us this in the game rules when I was demoing, but like you can donate cards called Devotion to kind of turn dice. So there is like some decent amount of dice mitigation to like turn a dice from a blank to a success.
Which is important, obviously, with all these.
Yeah, which is really important in a dice game, turns out.
Yep.
It's like nice to kind of have that. And then either player can do that, right? But you can only do 1 card. So if you are in a group of, 2 people in a co-op game, right? Like both of you can kind of do that. And so when you only have up to 4 dice, that's like a 50% swing right there.
Yeah, that's
definitely so that was cool. But I think one of my favorite parts was how the resource management worked, where you discard cards off the top of your deck face down, and there's like an energy stack, right? And you use that to kind of pay for cards. But at the end of the turn, you get this, I think, neat choice of like, you can either draw up to 3 cards or get like up to 3 energy, or any mix of those. And so kind of depending on what you have in your hand or like what you're trying to do, you get to make that choice as a player. Because I think it's like very common on these card games to either not have enough cards or not have enough money to pay for stuff. So you get a lot of, I think, flexibility at the end, which is, I think, unique in this space.
Yeah, that's cool. No, we definitely have plays on both the main channel and our streaming channel, so go check those out. I know Jerry, Mike, and I played that one as well, not live or not on the streaming channel. No. And do you remember much about it, Jerry? What are your kind of thoughts, remembrances?
I don't remember the specifics of the game. I remember liking the game. I thought it was it was a solid game. And this is coming from someone who's not the world's biggest fan of Lord of the Rings card game or Arkham. I
or
won't even
Marvel,
say
you can say it.
I won't even say. I won't even say it. But I like the Librarians. I thought the theme was pretty well done for what it is, and the gameplay I found interesting. Now, don't ask me the specifics because this was like, well over a year ago, I think.
Yeah, it was
that we
2
played
years ago, I think.
Yeah, but I do remember liking it.
Yeah, and I have the same recollection of it. I don't remember any specifics, but I remember thinking at the end, wow, I like that a lot. I want to play that one again. So that was my big recollection. Jerry, you did RPGs during this time, right?
Yeah, I did one RPG. So right after Twilight Inscription or Mutant Inscription or Mutant Inspiration, whatever that game was called.
Right.
I had an RPG scheduled for Torg Eternity, which Torg, not to spend too much time on it, but if you like RPGs, Torg is an RPG that's basically a remake of a RPG from the 90s. And the concept is that Earth has been invaded by all these other realities. So different places in Earth, you might have like a section that's sort of like Land of the Lost primitive area. There's another area that's like your typical fantasy tropes. There's another area that's like pulp action from like the 1930s. And the cool thing about it, at least in my mind, the theme is wherever your characters happen to be adventuring at the time, you get bonuses to your actions if you do something that's in the vein of that style. So, for example, if you are in the pulp area and you do something like Indiana Jones might do it, like you use your bullwhip to swing across a gap, you'll get a bonus for doing that. But if you try to do something that's anachronistic, like you're in the Land of the Lost and you're trying to fire a machine gun or something like that, you get penalties for doing that. So the basic concepts are really cool. I like that. The problem with the game is it's in my opinion anyway, it's entirely too complicated for what it is. It's if you think 5e is crunchy, this is taking it beyond for me. Yeah, that's what I did. Torg Eternity, if you're interested in the theme, you can check it out. They have all the books, I think, on Drive Through RPG. But just be aware that in play, at least for me, it was very complicated.
So did anybody play anything beside that before our game of the night?
No, I think I spent most of the rest of the day just wandering the hall for the first day because it's massive, right? Like if you haven't been, it's huge floor and definitely like an experience, right?
Absolutely. So for me, the highlight for the rest of the night, because I hadn't eaten literally all day at that point, I went and they have a place called Hot Box Pizza outside, and I got what's called a Tater Invader pizza, which is basically a pizza with ranch dressing, sour cream drizzle, tater tots, chives, bacon, like just ridiculous stuff on top of a pizza. And it is so good. My son and I tore through and ate that whole thing. And so I ended up sleeping for like an hour or two after that at that point because I was like in a total food coma. But
yeah, I came back to the room and he was just sprawled out dead with an open pizza box sitting on my bed.
Yes, it was so good. But yes, it was a lot. It was a lot of food all at once. And considering I hadn't eaten the rest of the day, it was fun. So that night we ended up playing Oathsworn. So if you want to hear my thoughts on Oathsworn, check back a couple of episodes for that. But it was the first experience for both of you. So we'll start with Terence. What were your thoughts on Oathsworn, which is a dungeon crawl? Let's just in the vein of something like a Gloomhaven or whatever.
It's more boss battler, right? Than dungeon crawl.
It's not a dungeon crawl.
Yeah, that's true. It is more of a boss battler. You're right.
I thought it was good. I mean, the last time I played Oathsworn was with you at GenCon in 2019. It was the last time I was GenCon. So I thought it was kind of funny that, it's taken that long for me to actually get the game in hand. But that demo, which I think he was still doing. Like I had another friend who did that Oathsworn demo with the guy, and I think he literally was running the same demo they ran in 2019. where it's like a very, I think, like prescriptive, like one turn, and then you kind of get the feel for it. But it was really cool to actually like play more than one turn in the combat. I think the story bits in the beginning were just more the environment than the actual parts of it were kind of just tough to follow along in that lobby, like in a convention where you're not at home.
So to be fair, we because this game is so heavy, we literally traveled the least possible distance to play it. So our hotel did not really have a gaming space in the lobby, so we had to travel to the JR Marriott or
we played at the
Hyatt
Regency,
Regency.
right?
Hyatt Regency, I'm sorry. So we played in the lobby of the Hyatt Regency, which we had also played in. That's where we played Hansa Teutonica and Marvel Champions the night before. We're like, oh, this is a hotel that's close to us, and it's got decent gaming space, although we ended up playing on this like coffee table both nights. So you're like on these, it's not an ideal gaming setting as it was. And then they also happen to have a bourbon night there that night, which, hey, look, anybody who listened to our PAX episode knows I'm down with like whiskey nights, bourbon nights, whatever else. But you don't want to play a heavy story-based game and try to follow the story when all of that is going on behind you. I feel like they were way louder than our whiskey night was.
Well, you're wrong on that one. You're having walked into your whiskey night after much whiskey had been consumed. It was not quiet.
Okay, all right. So I'm wrong, and I'm fully willing to admit that. All right, so Jerry, what were your thoughts on Oathsworn?
I liked it. I too, the last time I played it was in 2019. I had that same demo at the Oathsworn, or I can't remember what it's the name of the company, but their booth. And like you said, it was all pre-set up, so it kind of gave an overview of all the cool things you could do. But this was the first time playing it. I was really, really tired by this point because I hadn't gone to bed until early in the morning on Wednesday night. So
and you didn't nap
I
for
was
like
fading
3
a bit
hours like I did?
Yeah, I did not get a nap like Peter did.
Yes.
So I was, plus I had just played Torg, which was hurting my head. So I was fading a bit during the narrative portions there until we got to the actual boss battle part,
Fighty bit?
which is odd because I tend to like the narrative parts of things, but I want to try it again when I'm awake, I guess, is what I'm getting down to. I think I will like it quite a bit when I'm conscious or have had more caffeine.
Yeah. No. So yeah, I think for all of us it was a big pro, although the situation was not ideal. I think we all at least enjoyed what we were doing during the combat parts, if nothing else. And just a reminder for those of you who didn't get a chance to listen to our review yet, you can skip the narrative part, not completely, but you can basically turn it into a one-pager where you're getting the highlights of what the story is. So I do think, at least for me, that's the way I'm going to play it. And the story is well written either way, whatever part you're in. But yeah, we were not an ideal setting for the story, but gameplay is freaking awesome. It's probably my game of the year. It's probably my game of the last like 3 to 5 years, to be honest. I mean, I just love Oathsworn. So to hear me gush more, go check out, whatever episode it was, a few episodes ago, and you'll hear my thoughts on it more succinctly. All right. So Friday morning, I said, you know what? Thursday was basically an all-day media / food coma day. So I'm going to spend some time with my son. So I took him to the stadium. So for those of you who haven't been to GenCon before, not only does it take over the entire convention center, which is huge, not only does it take over like 5 or 6 hotels and their biggest ballrooms throughout downtown Indianapolis, but it also takes over the football stadium. So I wanted to show this to my son. Like, we literally just walked to the football stadium, and there is between all the hotels in the convention center, between the stadium and the convention center, there are these sky bridges, or this one happens to be a tunnel underground to get from the convention center to the stadium. And so I walked him over there. There are video games all along the left wall as we're walking in there. And then you get to this football stadium, and they have their open game library there. Now, it is $20 for a half day. So unlike the board game pass at Origins, it's a little more expensive. But it's I don't know, just to be able to play on a football field is really cool. We did not play, but we just walked it. There was this big van in the middle of the stadium. Again, all this is parked like on the field, whatever. We're like, what's going on in the van? And my son's like, people playing games in there. And I like peek my head around the corner, and sure enough, there's people in the van playing like a role-playing game. So, I don't know. Super fun. Just a neat experience. If you've never been to GenCon, make sure you go to the football stadium at least once, because you will never in your life see as many geeks on a football field as you will in at GenCon. So that was super fun. Did that with him on Friday morning. Then we went to a place called Wild Bill's. Now I know Jerry got in on this. Terrence, do you know what Wild Bill's is?
I do not.
Okay, so Wild Bill's is in the food truck area. It's a soda place. So they have like unique soda flavors, which you buy a cup and it's like $35-$40 for the cup. And then like you get unlimited refills. And then if you want to refill at any other convention ever that you go to, which has a Wild Bill, so it's at PAX. I don't know. I think it might be at Origins as well. You pay $7 for refills for the day and you get unlimited soda refills. So my son was super into it.
Well, not really unlimited.
Well, there's lines, of course, and they did run out of the only diet soda they had, which was Diet Root Beer, which is freaking great. But they did run out of it on Saturday. But anyway, Nick and I had gotten it on Friday. Jerry, sadly, didn't get his till Saturday, and then they ran out of soda like halfway through the day on Saturday, or at least the one he was interested in.
No, I got mine on Friday.
Oh, okay. Yeah. But anyway, it was kind of a cool, neat experience. If you haven't checked that out, like, not only do I want to talk about the cool games here, but I want to talk about the cool experience too. Like, if you go to Gen Con, I think this is something you should definitely look into. Again, we're bringing our mug with us when we go to PAX later this year. For $7 a day, we're going to get unlimited soda. And, you know, you don't all have to get your own mug. Like, Nick and I shared a mug the whole time. We'll get a second mug when we're at PAX, because I think my wife and daughter will be there. So it'll be fun to have, like, 2 mugs where we're, like, you know, filling up soda. Anyway, I thought that was kind of neat and unique. So that's why I wanted to bring that up. But then Nick went painting, and I met the graphic designer for our game that'll be coming out hopefully either later this year or early next year. We met our graphic designer. All the art's done for the game. We're super excited. Super cool, chill guy. Has a family. We talked about that. We didn't really talk about much else. Like, it was like totally family, like, you know, philosophies, things like that. But really neat to do. And then I got into a Helionox Chronicles demo from the designer of Helionox, but I'm going to wait on that till Terence gets there. But first, let's talk about Jerry's morning. What did you do Friday morning, Jerry?
What did I do? Oh, I remember. Friday morning, I played in another RPG. I played in the Alien RPG. And last time I played this was at Gen Con in 2019, and I had a blast. And yet again, I had a blast playing this. It's a ton of fun to play these little one-shot Alien games. My character was the captain. I died when the alien popped out, and my crewmate just lit the whole area up with his flamethrower, including me, and I had a flaming, dying alien fall on top of me and incinerate me. So I at least went out in a blaze of glory, but I did die, as almost all characters do in this game, but it was a lot of fun.
Cool. How about you, Terrence? What did you do in the morning before our Helionox demo?
Yeah, I actually forgot before Oathsworn that I played in the Lord of the Rings event at the end of the day, the last event, which was Hunt for the Dreadnought, which is one of their epic multiplayer events. And I actually met up with, not by intention, but I saw some people that we played games with at Con of Heroes, so it was kind of fun, small world.
It's not that small. You guys are all like LCG fans, right? Like, so it's not surprising.
I mean, it's not well in that, like, I happen to sit at their table, I guess,
well, sure,
because there's a bunch of different groups and people that were playing there as well. Yeah, that I think there was I don't know, like 10, 15, I don't know, groups or something. It's like pretty decent size, and all playing the same quest, so we're all playing one game, large game together. And so
So
good
is this
experience.
Gen Con specific scenario, or is this a scenario that you always have access to, but maybe you don't have access to as many people?
I think it was. You can definitely buy it. Well, I don't know how good FFG like print and play yada yada off stuff, but it's a thing in theory you can buy from Asmodee.
Well, Games
Um,
Center does a lot of their print and play stuff. I know that.
yeah, I think they made this after they sold their printer. But it was, I believe, the last Gen Con scenario for Lord of the Rings. That
Gotcha.
they did. And so
Well, Christian Peterson, who owns Games Center, right? Is that the one?
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Christian Peterson. Yep.
he is print and playing a lot of that stuff. So if you go to the store in Minnesota, I know you can pick that stuff up. A lot of the print and play stuff. They'd like print and play Arkham Heroes that were only available through print and play. They actually also, if you didn't hear the news, bought one of my favorite games of all time, which is KeyForge, and they actually printed the KeyForge Adventures. And Jerry actually called me during this morning and said, "Hey, I'm at the booth. Christian Peterson's here. You should come talk to him." And he was mobbed by people, so I never ended up talking to him. But bottom line, they actually printed the KeyForge Adventures, which was something people were asking for. I know they said they brought over 400 copies of each adventure to the con, and they sold out. So KeyForge, people who think it's dead or the haters, guess what? It's not dead. And
The KeyForge haters, they're everywhere.
everywhere, man, everywhere. Well, if you listen to what's the name of them? Team Covenant, I feel like they've declared it dead several times at this point. But yeah, no, the exciting news for us co-op fans about that though is that this is done well, and they do plan on supporting this into the future. By designing new adventures when new sets come out, and obviously printing them as well. So this is exciting news, at least for me, where you can keep KeyForge alive, you can play it co-op, you can play it solo, and just like everything else, I feel like these adventures will get better as time goes on. Their first attempts were very good, but I'm excited for what the future holds for new KeyForge adventures in the future, and I'm glad it's a mode they're planning on supporting going into the future as well.
So back to the print on demand thing, Terence. The older print on demand things they had for Lord of the Rings, the quality wasn't as good as the real thing. It didn't really matter too much for Lord of the Rings because they were all self-contained decks, but the quality was just not as good. I got the print on demand stuff from Game Center for the print and play stuff that was released by Asmodee for Twilight Imperium 4, which is the stuff behind me, and that stuff is much higher quality than it used to be. So
That's good to know.
there you go.
Yeah, I haven't bought anything from Game Center from their print and play, but they did restock all of the like Lord of the Rings Nightmare that went out of print. So for people that are hunting for those things, that's like a really good ad, as well as a bunch of the Arkham stuff, and then even the Parallel Investigators, which they force people to print out by hand or manually and figure out a way to get it. They've started printing some of that stuff, and also the novellas used to have promo cards as well. So you had to buy like a $20 book to get like basically like promo investigator. But it wasn't even just like promo as an alt art. It was like alternate art of an investigator, plus it would have a different like signature weakness and like a signature kind of card with it. So it was like a different way to play some of those investigators. But so they have that where you can just buy that, and because those books are out of print, so you can't even get them anymore. So it's been really cool to kind of see that.
Yeah, and they sell it online too on the Game Center website. So
yeah,
for those that don't have an inn in Minnesota, you can order it online.
Well, and I'll say, like, I'm super excited. Like, Fantasy Flight was a big deal, and we know Asmodee has turned it into, not as big a deal nowadays.
Yeah, but say not.
but Ghost Galaxies is Christian Peterson, who made Fantasy Flight what it was. He's the original, mind behind Fantasy Flight games, and so I'm super excited to see what Ghost Galaxies comes up with in the future. So I will definitely be keeping my eyes on them.
All right, that was a bit of a tangent. So back to Terence, your Lord of the Rings thing.
Yeah, so Hunt for the Dreadnought, I think is unique for some of the epic multiplayer stuff. It's done by Jeremy Zwern, which I think he did like maybe Star Wars Destiny and some other stuff, but he has had his hand. He's part of like the LCG crew down there. But yeah, I mean, you basically fight like this massive dreadnought ship, and basically you all progress through the quest together.
Wait,
but
in Lord of the Rings?
Yeah.
Dreadnought, like boat ship, not spaceship.
A boat ship.
Okay, all right. Whenever I hear Dreadnought, I always think of spaceships for, I guess, Twilight Imperium reasons.
Yeah, makes sense. But yeah, you're hunting this big like massive ship, and it even comes in the like. It's actually kind of annoying for transporting it, but it's the double size, like the Ant-Man Wasp size, like giant card, but it doesn't fold. Like it is not creased to fold. So you basically have this massive ship that's this giant card, which thematically is cool, but is actually really annoying too if you ever want to take that.
Right.
Take that anywhere with you. And plenty of people have basically like reprinted it as a small card, like a normal size card. But so you're hunting this thing. Also, like the first quest, you basically have to progress collectively as a group. So he went around basically asking each group periodically like how much quest they've put on the quest card, and then once we all hit a certain number based on the number of people in the group, like we would all basically get to the next part of the quest, and then you have to hunt the dreadnought, and then you're basically like calculating how much damage you do, and then when he kind of hits half, he like flips over to like a weakened state, because it's like burning in flames. And but it's neat because the two kind of epic multiplayer quests that Jeremy has done. So traditionally, like you would have to basically be in sync with each round in your epic multiplayer group. So usually it's like 3 groups playing together, and then like you'd have to wait for all the groups to hit the end of round to go to the next round, right? And this one you get to play as fast or slow as you want, and you're just like calculating kind of the totals there. So it makes it a much more fluid experience that can scale a lot better.
Cool.
Yeah, so that was fun. And then I guess segueing into Friday morning, I end up doing the Arkham Horror event, which was not new. And it was the Machinations in Time, which was Jeremy's Arkham event that I think he did. It was, I think, the last basic Arkham GenCon event they had back in 2019, I think. But I had not played it before. So both of
these were like rehashes of the
last GenCon event. It was the generic ticket price, so you didn't even get to take the quest home. So there's no like promos or anything, which I think probably upset some people. But yeah, I went and did that, and that was cool because it's like a time traveling thing with like Tesla and other folks in history, and you have 3 groups that are past, present, and future, and you have things where things that happen in the past affect the present, and then things you do affect the future, and you can do things that kind of go back and forth in time. And so at first you don't really know what's going on, and you kind of have to figure it out. And then but yeah, it is a very fun quest, and it's Arkham, so I don't really want to say a whole ton more because I don't necessarily want to spoil it. But
well, yeah, I mean, bottom line for all this, TLDR is, at least for me, is you can go to these conventions and play events for your favorite games, Lord of the Rings, or Arkham, or Marvel Champions, and like get experiences that you won't be able to get outside of the con. So
yeah,
I mean that's kind of the cool part for me. So let's talk a little bit, and again we're going a little long here, so let's we're gonna hopefully keep it a little shorter here at the end. Helionox Chronicles, which is a game that is coming to Kickstarter. The designer, I've been in touch with him. He's hoping for November, but Helionox is a game you brought, Terence, to the attention of Mike in the OSCS group. So let us know your thoughts on Helionox, and then let's bring it to Chronicles.
Yeah, so Helionox is a deck builder, I guess, if you're to categorize it. I think originally designed as a competitive deck building game that is sci-fi. I think the lore is basically you have these architects, and then it's all around kind of, I think that catastrophic event he was talking about with us about I believe it's Mercury blowing up or something. And then I think a solo mode got added to it, and it kind of got really popular. And this is how I found about it in the One Player Guild on BGG, of like it being a pretty good solo game. And so that's kind of where I found it and picked it up after the Kickstarter. So there was like an original one and then a deluxe edition that kind of added pickup and delivery to it. But what's kind of neat about the core game is that you can actually go through the game and not buy a whole lot of cards, which maybe makes it not a great deck builder compared to other deck builders in that sense. But there's a lot of other ways you can spend your money, because there's locations on the board. You can build embassies that make it cheaper to actually travel to different locations. And each location also has like things that are unique to that location that you can leverage for resources and stuff like that. And so it also has a cool mechanic where I love this in deck builders, where when you buy cards, it goes on the top of your deck or in your hand, so you get to actually see it the next turn, and you don't have to kind of wait to reshuffle it. So even near the end game, it's still worth buying cards because you can use them, on the up to the last turn. And anytime you can get card draw, you can kind of get that in your hand. But it was always a fun and neat puzzle, because depending on the cards that come out and other stuff, like and the architects you pick, your strategy may change. Of like what you're gonna do during the turn, so you're not like doing the same stuff over and over.
Well, and this was cool for me because Nick ended up playing with us, who's my son, and it's the first time he got a chance to playtest something that's not really released to the public yet. And so it was just a neat experience. Well, he's played our games, but somebody else, like, so he gets to see that not every game is published or fully perfect before it releases, and it's not just dad that screws up. It's other people as well. So it was a little bit of a prototype play. The one thing I'll say is this is exactly for our audience. Terence said the original Helionox is the deck builder. It's competitive. They had a solo mode. Helionox Chronicles is literally designed for solo and co-op play only. So it is exactly for our audience. And there are some things with the deck building. They did things to streamline the game and shorten the game, which I think were good. But they also did some things, because they shortened it, where you're not seeing as many of the cards, even though you put them on the top of your deck. So I was actually talking to the designer today, and so I'm not probably going to be ever officially credited with helping development, but he and I are working on some stuff to make the game even better than what we played when we played it that day. So I will say I enjoyed it enough that I'm basically willing to give free development, playtest feedback, whatever else. So he and I actually talked quite a bit today, and worked our way through it. So I will say I will probably be giving this my seal of approval by the time it comes out, because I will have at least the things I had problems with, I am hopefully going to help make them better.
Uncredited work.
Yeah.
I'm curious, not to delay the podcast, but I'm curious offline some of the stuff you suggested. But yeah, I mean the new game, I think he adds a lot more. He changes the pacing of it, and so the rounds are longer because you're able to kind of do multiple things. And basically in the first game, you kind of do your whole turn and then kind of pass on the next player. And in this game, you do one action at a time, right? And then the next player gets to an action. And so it does kind of break up your turns significantly. And then every 2 actions that are performed by everyone, you have to kind of roll dice for basically the kind of AI or kind of enemy force to kind of do stuff, which kind of gives you a lot more things to deal with than I think the original game, which you only had to do that at the end of the round, not the end of your, like, I guess, like 2 action turn.
Right. And it reminds me a lot of like when you compare Nations to Through the Ages, and I like both of those games, but Nations, you're doing micro actions, and Through the Ages, you do like this huge, massive turn. So some people like one, some people like the other. But for me, Helionox Chronicles is one to keep your eye out for. That's for sure. All right, Jerry, you went back to more RPGs, right?
I did. I went back and I played The One Ring, which is a relatively new RPG based on Lord of the Rings. That's come out in like the last year, I think. I had previously read like a sort of a primer on the rules. They didn't really grab me, but I like the theme, so I wanted to give it a try, and it was a lot of fun. Still not sure I care for the mechanics of it that much, but the GM did a great job, and the game was fun. So yeah, that was the One Ring RPG, which I believe they're coming out with a Lord of the Rings, like a version of the RPG for the uh, Dungeons and Dragons um, framework. So the 5e framework, sometime the end of this year, I think. So maybe if I don't care for the mechanics of that, I'll like the mechanics better with the new version.
All right, so for me in the afternoon, I went around with Nick. So this was a very Nick-centric day, as you can tell, even though we did Helionox. He and I walked the hall together, and I basically let him lead. This is our first time walking the hall, so it wasn't until Friday afternoon, so basically halfway through the con for us, because we stayed Thursday, Friday, Saturday, till we finally walked the con. I let him take the lead, so I was not specifically looking for co-op games, and when you don't specifically look for something, you don't find it, and so there's not really much for me to talk about for this Friday afternoon. So anybody, Terence, we haven't gotten to your Friday afternoon. What did you do after we were done there? Anything interesting for our fans?
Yeah, I mean, I ended up talking actually to Tarek, the designer of Helionox, for another 3 hours.
That's right.
So
I
I'm sure I'm
remember.
going to get a bunch of uncredited and kind of changes comparing and contrasting the two before he kind of went off to his pitch. And then after that, I went and played Marvel United. I actually probably one of the few people who have not played it before, but I went and played that to collect the Juggernaut promos for friends in the Discord.
Cool. So what were your thoughts on Marvel United? I know we've all played, but all of us have only played the base game, right?
Yeah, I also only demoed the base game there as well. They did have the X-Men one, but that table was busy, and since I was mostly interested in getting the promos, I didn't actually care which one I played.
So what were your thoughts, Terence?
I thought it was pretty good, right?
Oh, you're lying. Stop.
For what it is, like I think it's a pretty good game for the weight and whatever. I think I'm just not interested in buying in at like $400 worth of Marvel United, right? But like if you're picking this up for $15 and you want to play 15 minutes of something with people, I would say like for people who maybe don't play a ton of games, like it's not a complex game, and like for what it is, it's pretty well streamlined, right? At least the like
Sure.
scenario I played, like there aren't exceptions that you have to talk about edge cases in the rules. Like you can explain the rules and it plays pretty smoothly. And then the card sharing mechanic reminds me a lot of I think like in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Batman, the like kind of dice sharing thing. I enjoy that mechanic of like decisions you make do impact other players, and so I think that is probably the best thing about that game is that you get that kind of forced cooperation. But it's not. I wouldn't say it's like a super. At least the base game, it wasn't super deep. I think the theme is like super
or
weak.
interesting. Not super deep or interesting. That's where I was going with that. I don't know.
I mean, I don't know. Like it is what it is, right? Like I'm not. It's not like a thing you're trying to dig into a lot. It's like it's about as interesting to me as like Pandemic is. It's like it is a gateway game, right? Like that's what it is, and the theme feels super pasted on for me.
Yes.
Even with the minis, like I played Black Widow, and I had one card. I think that in theory was unique to me. I guess like maybe the icon distribution is different, but I had something that allowed me to look at the mastermind deck and either bottom it or leave it on top, and that was like the unique thing for me. But like Red Skull didn't feel anything like Red Skull. Like none of the characters actually felt super like special. But the cooperation for what it is as a very very simple gateway game, I think is I don't have like a lot of complaints about it for what it is, right?
Yeah. So Jerry, your thoughts on it before I trash it?
I have no thoughts.
On Marvel United? Didn't you play it?
Yeah, I do not care for Marvel United. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah, no, I'm not.
I don't want to yuck people's yum.
Yeah, no, I'm not gonna trash it. I will say that Steve loves it. Obviously, on our channel, he did a lot of streaming of it with his wife, and Tom Bassel seems to love it as well. Now, to be fair, I have only played the core base box, and it's just not that interesting. Like, it's just not. Now, I've heard that it gets better with expansions, but for me, Marvel United is it's I guess a good gateway game, but I don't even know that, like, here's the problem with stuff that's like Marvel themed or whatever else themed. Like, it's hard to get people into it unless they're into that theme. Like, I bring my friends over, or like my kids' friends, like parents over, they come over. I'm not bringing out a Marvel theme, something more like Wingspan.
You want some Solar Hero that the theme is papered on?
I mean,
So
look,
they don't
I'd rather
care.
bring the mind out where there's no theme, right? Where I can just bring it to the table, play it. Like, for me, that's a more interesting 15-minute game.
I mean, I honestly wish it didn't have any theme. But like as a gateway game, like I could see myself playing. Like I think my parents could play Marvel United without any difficulty.
Yeah,
It's that level of gateway game for me.
Absolutely.
And even with the Marvel theme, they probably could get behind it because they don't care about Marvel, so it's not like whatever to them.
Right.
Again, like I think it is, and they sold it for $15 at the booth, and I think for a $15 gateway game that would play with people that aren't regular board gamers, like I think that's fine for what it is.
What I was hoping they would be selling was some expansions at the booth, because I don't own any. I literally bought it for $30 at Walmart or whatever.
Why do you want more? You literally don't like the game.
No, but
Good question, man. Good question.
no, but I want to like it, right? Like, there are people that I respect and know, like Steve and
they had
Tom
the X-Men
Bassel.
stuff there. They had the X-Men one as well for $15, like the base game. And I saw some people walk away with a bunch of shrink wrap X-Men stuff. But I don't know how you got it. I mean, I saw long lines around the Spin Masters booth, so.
Yeah, that's what I wanted, though. I wanted expansions because I want to see what adding complexity to the game does for the game. But because I don't hate the mechanics.
Are you like a couple $100 interested?
No,
in
I'm
that?
not. That's the problem, right? Like, for $15 to $30, I'm all in. For a couple $100, like, I'm out.
Yeah.
And that's the problem with Marvel United to me. It's the price point doesn't match what you're getting, the complexity, the whatever else.
Well, like I said, I think at $15, I think the price point is perfect for what you're getting.
Oh, of course. No, it's way cheap for what you're getting. In fact, just the miniatures themselves are better than $15 worth of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that is a very, very good price point for that. But I'm at the point where a good price, where years ago maybe a good price point would cause me to buy the game, regardless. At this point, even at such a great price, I'm not sure I'd want. There are other games I'd rather play.
By the way, it's right back here.
Yeah, and
it's on my shelf. I have it still. I just need something to wake it up for me. And even my kids were bored with it, who are.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't play. Like, I think for a lot of people who are also into it, like I was talking to some other folks on Discord, it's just like it's because you can also play it in 15 minutes. Like that is also a big pro for people who are busy with really young kids, or whatever, and just don't have a lot of time to play games, at night, and so it does get a lot of plays just on the timing aspect alone.
Yeah.
But
all right. So I did finally walk the hall Friday, which I said, and then we played Ark Nova at night. Anything else anybody want to talk about before that?
I got to hang out with David Thompson. That was kind of cool.
I mean, don't name drop here, Terence. That's not what this is about.
Mostly, it was just
kidding,
mostly
man.
Fun because he's a friend of a coworker of mine, and I've been meaning to meet with him. I think I actually haven't even played any of his games, so it's not even like I am drooling over the guy because I love his games. I only wanted to meet with him because he's a friend of a friend, or a friend of mine, a friend of a friend, and we were planning on meeting in 2020 at GenCon, and it has taken, I guess, a few years since then because of obvious reasons. But it's finally nice to meet the person face to face And honestly, probably one of the coolest things about being at GenCon is that I think for a lot of these games, like a lot of the designers are actually there in person and you can talk to them, right?
Well, and it
And they're
shows you more and more, like, these people are real people, and like even like Caleb, the designer of Marvel Champions, one of my favorite games. I talked to him a lot this weekend. I had never met him before. Super nicest guy you've ever want to meet. Like, and I feel like you get a lot of that. And designers are not necessarily the like most famous people out there. Like people are like, oh, you're a game designer. Like, oh, I want to be that so I can be famous. Nobody knows who the heck game designers are. Like, if Reiner Knizia walked in the room, I wouldn't be able to pull him apart from like Martin Wallace. Like, you know what I mean? Like, or Jim from Saskatchewan. You know what I mean? Like there's, I don't know. As much as we put these people on the pedestal, like, it's not like you're becoming famous by, or at least, you know, nobody pulls you aside at cons, or not many people anyway.
Yeah, I actually think the media personality are a lot more popular.
Well, because you know what they look like.
Stuff. I would even venture to say most people who play Marvel Champions don't even know who Caleb Grace is.
I
like
didn't.
By name, not even like their face, right? Because obviously you probably haven't seen him before, but even like the name itself, even though it's on the box, I bet most people go to the game because it says Marvel Champions. It's a Marvel game. You unbox it and you play it, right? And that's about it.
And I didn't, honestly, but
I had no idea who he was.
Yeah, but he's a super cool guy, and we sat down and talked to him several times throughout the weekend. And that's one of the cool parts. Another cool part about going to these big cons is you do get to meet these people and find out they're just normal, cool, relaxed people. All right, Jerry, you have anything before Ark Nova?
Now let's just get this over with. We played Ark Nova. Peter crushed me. It was embarrassing. Moving on.
So Ark Nova is a great game, which we're going to spend at least an hour on because I did crush Jerry.
Great, he did.
Because I mean, I crushed Jerry so bad that there were tears, literal tears coming from his eyes.
Yeah.
No.
Very much.
No. Ark Nova is a great game. I mean, if you're anything into board games at all, you've probably heard of it. It's one of the hottest games that's been out. I do have solo plays and rules breakdowns on our channel for Ark Nova. I don't think the solo mode is nearly as good, and we actually had a discussion about this on the Discord the other day. I don't think this solo mode is as good as the multiplayer game, but I think the multiplayer game's very good, and I think the solo mode's very good. There's enough content in there to keep you entertained because you have 8 different maps in addition to like the basic map, or the basic 2 maps. You have 8 other maps that you could play differently. Certainly the card draw is going to be different every time you play it, but really your actions can be very similar from game to game. So I do think there is a limited amount of solo play to it because really there's no AI bot or anything. It's just a timer, and so that's kind of a bummer, but there's enough interaction in what you're trying to do, and it's more of a race game than anything else. And so I do think the multiplayer game's very interesting. Like, there are times where you'll get to like what they call a break, which is like the end of the round where you get your income and have to discard down to hand size. Like, that is player controlled, and I think there are very interesting things. And I do think there are very interesting things that come from that. So Jerry, what are your thoughts?
Yeah.
You've played this game 2 or 3 times.
No,
now.
I like it a lot, and I think it's better than Terraforming Mars, personally.
Boom, mic drop.
Yep, boom. I do. I enjoy it more, even when I get crushed. I enjoy it. Although I think next time I want to try that. Try drafting the opening hands, and see if that makes it too long to start, or it otherwise overcomplicates it. I doubt it will, but since every one of the seemingly thousands of cards is unique to some degree, I think maybe drafting might help that one a little bit.
Sure.
But I really like the game. If the biggest ding I have against the game, I think at this point, is it is a huge table hog.
Yeah.
Just finding some place that you can set everything up that's wide enough or long enough is just a pain in the butt. But other than that, it's a great game.
Yeah. So, Terrence, I know you played Marvel Champions that night with Caleb and with Brant from Step Into the Portal, and
And then
with
Roy from Dice
Roy
Tower.
Kennedy from Roy Kennedy from Dice Tower. So, yeah, I mean, I don't assume you have too much you could talk about from that night. So, it was just fun, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've never played with the designer of a game for their game before, so that was a first, and that was fun. And it was nice just we played at the bottom of the dripping noodle. And
You're giving
so
away
it
the
was just
spot, man.
I think that's where Cardboard of the Rings does their like after dark event. But it was just nice to get away from I think the convention center and the noise, and so that was like kind of a fun night of just playing a game.
And Jerry and I ended up doing the Keymaster event that night. We met with, again, we know Henry pretty well, so he's the one who invited us. There was a bunch of, board game media contributors that you would know there. Becca Scott was there. Things Get Dicey. I can't think of her name right now. She was there. There's a board game Twitch. Paula Deming. There's some Twitch people that I knew there. There were some people from Dice Tower News and Dice Tower, like the main show there. So, yeah, it was a fun industry event. But again, like no gaming that happened that night after that.
Well, video gaming.
Well, video gaming. So, yeah, Tappers is a cool bar that's about a mile from the convention center that has, like, free video games that you could play. So, if you're, like, Gen Xer, where you grew up playing video games in an arcade, it's literally that, except you don't have to bring quarters.
Unless you want to play pinball. You got to pay for the pinball.
Really?
Which is the only downside. Yep.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of pinball, Jeff Engelstein was there, who's, like, biggest, most famous game probably at this point is his, like, solo pinball game, which, by the way, is very good. We've never covered that, but both Mike and I like that. His pinball games very much. It is a roll and write, but a very good one that simulates pinball and more of a solo experience, even if you're playing multiplayer. So check those out if you haven't. There's plenty of free print and play opportunities for that. So look into that if you haven't tried out that. Does anybody know the game? I know it's out by WizKids.
Super Skill Pinball.
Super Skill Pinball, yes. And there's so many themed ones now and whatever else, but yeah,
Mike covered that one.
Mike did cover it?
Yeah, he had a playthrough and a review on the main channel.
Yeah. So, but we haven't covered it on the podcast yet or the streaming channel, and I do think it's good. And honestly, even though it's multiplayer, whatever, like it's really just beat your score kind of a game. So like, definitely good for solo players. If you like pinball, it does feel a lot like pinball for sure. And there's fun, interesting decisions in that one. So I really like that. But I do know Jeff personally as well. So take that with a grain of salt, as it were. All right. Are we ready for Saturday?
Let's go.
All right. So 8:30 a.m. after being out way too late on Friday night, we we got to meet with Restoration Games, who thankfully were in the same hotel on the same floor as us. So we didn't have to go very far to do the Dark Tower expansion, which is also on Kickstarter.
That was very, very fortunate.
Yes. So Jerry, tell us a little about what you thought of the new Dark Tower stuff and some of the highlights.
So the folks at Restoration are doing a reprint of the Return to Dark Tower game and adding a new expansion called Covenant, I think it is. And we got a media demo. It was us and a couple of other content creators. Got a media demo from the team at Restoration, sort of walking us through the elements of the new expansion. So I don't think we haven't covered Return to Dark Tower yet on the channel. I think the only thing we did was talk about it at the last, or at the Origins recap, right?
Yes. Yep.
Because we had played the pre-production version at Origins. Restoration demoed it for us there. And I think Peter's quote for that was that it was a fun romp.
Yes, and Mike made fun of me and said that means
we all made
it's
fun
terrible.
of you for that.
And I said, no, romps are good. What's wrong with a romp? Romper Room
Yeah.
is like my favorite kid show.
I see you, Peter. Anyway,
she never saw Peter. By the way, in all my years of watching, she never saw Peter.
Yeah. Anyway, so because that joke's gonna go over the heads of so many people. Peter, heard that reference. Anyway.
Yes. Well, they're probably way younger than I am, so it's fine.
Yeah, probably. Anyway, so, so my opinion on the base game of Return to Dark Tower is I think Fun Romp is a good way to describe it. I enjoyed it quite a bit, but to some degree it was a little easy. And that seems to be something that this expansion in particular is ramping it up a bit.
Well, yeah, it's designed to address that criticism of the game, because honestly, it's a fun romp, partially because you don't have to think too much in the base game, right? But here, they created movement puzzles, they created a lot of puzzles, which increase complexity and increase the fun, so...
well, I wouldn't say increase complexity. Like, it doesn't make the game that much more complicated, but it does make the decisions more weighty and a little bit more thinky. So just, I didn't want to make it sound like the game is super complex now, because it's not. But they've been added things in. Like, for example, in the base game, you could essentially move from one side of the board to the other every turn. Movement was very easy. You could pretty much get almost anywhere you needed to go in a single move action. They've changed that up in this expansion by adding something called Wastelands. So a bunch of these wastelands will be all over the board, and if you move into one, you have to stop moving for that turn, and then you can start up again the following turn. But by injecting those sort of little hazards in the way of your movement, you have to really consider, all right, I'm moving, towards this place so I can set myself up to move into the next, where I want to go on my next turn. Whereas in the previous version, it's just, you just move there. So just that little, and that's just a piece of the expansion, but it did add a bit more weight to some of the decisions that you were making and setting yourself up in the future. And I really liked it.
Well, yeah, one of the other things they did, which was a complaint of mine from the base game, was like all 4 regions of the board, north, south, east, west, kind of had the same buildings at the start. And here they had special buildings that you constructed as the game went on by doing tasks. So one of them was like, don't move, and you get a progress toward this. And then once you've progressed even and gotten all these like quest points toward building this building, you still have to go there and spend the action to build it as well. So like, do I spend time doing that? Do I focus on whatever? And meanwhile, there are no skulls being placed in that building, because again, that was another negative, was like skulls were pretty easy to keep clear in the base game, but they have 2 ways of addressing that. Number 1, you only have like 3 buildings per region instead of 4 to put your skulls in, so that puts a little more pressure in because of that. The other thing they added is these black skulls, which come out and you put them in a building and they can never be removed. So it takes up a space of those like 3 skulls per building. It took up one of those spaces. So I'm getting into a little bit of details here, but the bottom line is I think they heard the criticisms of the complexity and easy nature of the base game and did things to address it.
So, and to be clear, there's a higher difficulty level on the base game that I don't think Peter or I ever played. We were mainly talking about the base level game, so it might have made it more difficult, but the weight of the decisions didn't seem to change that much. Whereas with this new expansion, it's probably more difficult, but it also adds more strategy and thinking ahead than the base game did. So I really like it. I think it's a great game. It's a bit pricey, but if you have nostalgia for the old Dark Tower board game, or you're just interested, it is a fun game.
And is that on Kickstarter?
And the expansion was very good.
GameFound, or what's the new one?
It is currently on BackerKit.
BackerKit.
So BackerKit has decided to enter the crowdfunding realm, competing with Kickstarter and GameFound. GameFound and BackerKit used to just be pledge managers. Now they've both moved into the crowdfunding arena as well. And I think Dark Tower, the Dark Tower reprint and the new expansion are the first board game crowdfunding that BackerKit is doing, and they're doing quite well. They were over 1.3 last.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. $1.4 million, almost 1.5, and over 12,000, almost 13,000 backers with 7 days left on it on Backer.
Yeah, good for them. I mean, I'm a big fan of the stuff that Restoration does. I really like Unmatched. I really like Stop Thief, although that's almost pure nostalgia right there.
But that does have solo co-op mode as well.
It does, yes.
Yep. All right, Terence, we haven't heard from you in a while. What did you do on Saturday morning?
I got to the hall as soon as possible to pick up more promos for people. I went to the My Hero Academia booth at 9:55 or whatever, because they opened the hall a little bit early. They were selling exclusive GenCon playmats, and within a minute of me standing in line in the process of trying to purchase a playmat, the line wrapped around the booth, and it's like one of those larger booths. And I was pretty amazed at how fast these lines form at GenCon.
So you were one of the bulls. You were like the first bull. You were like an alpha bull.
Yep. I knew that like it just like they did one of those things where they know it sells out, so they limit the quantity each day.
Right.
And so I was like, if I'm gonna get this thing for this person, I don't want to wait in an hour plus line, because that sucks. And two, like they'll probably sell out if I get it any later. So I think I was like the fourth person in line when I got there. So that's what I did in the morning, and then I went and played G.I. Joe Mission Critical. I went to the Renegade booth and kind of demoed that.
Let's talk about that a little bit.
Like whatever room that they have when you have a lot of money and you can pay for that.
Nice. Yeah, so let's hear about G.I. Joe Mission Critical, because that's a new property for them. I mean, G.I. Joe not so much. They had G.I. Joe the deck building game, but they this is a new foray into that, and it's a lot like Power Rangers, you said, right?
Yeah, it's called the Guardian System now. They've named it. It wasn't called the Guardian System when Power Rangers was created, but it's another game in that kind of entry, and I'm a big fan of that. And we actually have, I mean Mike is putting up a video on the main channel for his review, and I think he's doing a playthrough as well.
Of G.I. Joe?
No, of Power Rangers.
I was about to say,
just like many years late, where he's finally now doing a review.
Well, yeah, that's way late.
Yeah, I've been working on the mic because I think either you or both of you all played like an earlier play test of it.
Yeah,
before
we
the final
played
version came out.
Yes,
and I think he had fairly negative opinions, but I've been egging him on a bunch, and it sounds like, not to spoil a ton of stuff, but it sounds like he doesn't totally hate it now. So that's a plus, but you'll have to wait for the review to kind of get his real opinion there. But yeah, so it's based off that, but they're replacing the Megazords with a vehicle marketplace now. And so, in the Power Rangers game, when you kill enough of the kind of foot soldier minions, you unlock like a Megazord as this like kind of, usually it's like a one-time effect that exhausts, but then you get to ready it each round essentially. And there's only actually like 4 or 5 rounds in the course of a game usually. By that time, you either win or lose.
Right.
But in G.I. Joe, the values are lower, and the foot soldiers are more of a currency. So you have this kind of marketplace of 3 vehicle cards, and I think as you kill more the monsters and bosses, that marketplace gets larger. And so you have anywhere from like, I think I saw from 2 to 5, kind of that's the value. And then one of the characters they had in the core set, CoverGirl, she had an ability that was once per battle, you can actually reduce the cost of vehicle by 1 as well. So I think one of the kind of big changes for me was getting away from, usually you save your Zord abilities for like kind of the big battles that round,
right,
and kind of being able to use it more freely because it doesn't cost as much to do, right? And you only have 3, so you can't like just save it, and so they get refreshed every battle too, so you don't have to be afraid when you use it that they don't get replenished. And then her whole kit is actually built around that vehicle marketplace, which was kind of cool. So there are only 3 there, so you kind of have to be a little wary of just like burning through all those vehicles. But she has like a card that you can basically discard a vehicle, and then the cost of that vehicle, so you actually want a high cost vehicle, is how much damage you can do to an enemy. And they have like a equivalent one for actually reducing damage dealt to you. So
Yes.
Yeah, so
That's
like
pretty
I was a
cool.
little wary about that vehicle thing, but I think I'm coming around on like it is an interesting addition that I think will make it feel different from Power Rangers.
Yeah, it's a neat. It's neat that they're using the same system but putting in the GI Joe universe, which honestly I'm much more interested in than Power Rangers.
Oh yeah, same for me too. I only got into Power Rangers because there was nothing else like it at the time, and it was the only IP that existed for it. If I knew, I think that they were going to I bought it like literally like a month before they announced the GI Joe game, which was great for me. But in theory, it's supposed to be cross-compatible, which I am very skeptical of how that's going to work, because I asked a bunch of questions, and I think the person who was demoing it had no idea. They
Right.
also lost the rulebook, so like they couldn't even. He was like, "It's in the rulebook somewhere," but someone took it, so
Nice.
he couldn't even like point it to me because this was like Saturday, right? So you're like 3 days into Gen Con.
Right. They stole the
but-
rule book, which is
Yeah, so someone stole the rulebook, so great. Or they misplaced it. But the demo was fun. There is definitely some like sharing of like, it's like, oh yeah, that card definitely existed in Power Rangers, that ability existed in Power Rangers, but I don't think it's gonna be like a carbon copy. It's not like this. The Blue Ranger is exactly this character in GI Joe, so I'm glad it's not just like a reskin of the core set.
Cool.
I'm getting a kick out of you slinging the Power Rangers lingo though. Terence.
Of Megazords.
Yeah, there you go. Look at these Megazords, swords.
Morbing time.
Now you
that was
played
later
it,
that
Jerry.
night. That was later that night.
Now, Jerry,
I have played it.
You played an early prototype with us though, right? You haven't played it since its release, correct?
No, I played its release. I played a prototype, and then I played. I think I played the release. Didn't Mike have it?
Mike just got a copy of it recently.
No, I don't think so. I think we only played early prototype, and we had a little bit of negative reaction to that, but it's definitely improved since then, for sure.
One would hope that the prototype is different from the final release.
Yeah. It was okay.
Yeah.
All right, so my Saturday consisted of, actually after that that Dark Tower morning, I ended up painting with Nicholas, my son. So he wanted me to paint. He had done some painting the day before. That's one of the other cool aspects of Gen Con. Like, they have a free place where you can go. They give you a free miniature. You get to paint it up. And so he and I did that before Terence.
So are your Oathsworn minis painted now? Is that what happened on Saturday?
Yeah, no, not at all. No,
Yep.
We did all 40K stuff. They had a bunch of 40K and fantasy there. So
those are not cheap minis, man.
No,
40K
they're
minis.
not.
He should have kept going back and getting could have come out with an army.
Well, we ended up with 3 minis from 3 different like genres of stuff. So nothing useful, but it was still fun to just bond with him in something that he enjoys. Because, I mean, he plays board games with me, but I don't know that it's his passion. But he loves art and painting and stuff like that. And we just had a fun time doing that together. So it was a cool bonding experience. So we did that, and then right to Mutant Genesis, where he joined us also for Marvel Champions. And we're not going to cover much more of that because, again, we've talked a lot about Marvel Champions this weekend. And I'm just going to end my day here by saying he and I walked the hall after that. We spent some time trying to get in the Renegade event that evening. Didn't do that. Terence did. But then we played Marvel Champions 2 more times that night, because when I asked my son what he wanted to play, he said Marvel Champions. So we ended up playing that with Jerry, and then Jerry and Nick went back to the room. And then we got to meet Nick and Chuck from the Discord that night. And we just played more Marvel Champions. So that's what happened with me
Oh, with you, yeah.
Yeah. So what did you guys end up doing Saturday? Let's start with Jerry. I feel like we haven't heard from you in a bit.
Well, Saturday afternoon I played another RPG, Call of Cthulhu. I like to get a game of that in, well, at least one game of that in every convention, just because I think it's fun. So played a session of that. Got killed again. Really no surprise for that game, but it was fun. And then I ended up I had seen information online about a new design from Kevin Wilson, who has done a bunch of stuff. Started off, I think, with Fantasy Flight, did like Arkham Horror Second Edition, Android, the board game, not the Netrunner card game. Bunch of other stuff that you've probably heard of. And he's working on a new adventure game called Kinfire Chronicles. So I was trying to hunt them down to see if I couldn't get a demo. They had some demo ticketed events, but they sold out very quickly. So I eventually found them and got a demo of what this game is going to be, which I believe launched today, or was supposed to launch today on Kickstarter. I'll have to see if it's out yet. But it's a narrative adventure game, which kind of combines like the narrative going through cards in a narrative like Too Many Bones, although the narrative is more coherent and choices you might make earlier might affect things that happen later, versus Too Many Bones where the cards are somewhat disconnected. Followed by encounters on maps where it looked somewhat similar to a boss battler there. The real interesting part for me was that they were talking, the game is going to ship with 15 scenarios, and each scenario is going to take like 15 minutes to set up, which I believe, having seen all the prototype components that they had, and take around 45 to 60 minutes to play, which is kind of rare for this kind of genre.
What's the name of that one?
Kinfire Chronicles. Did I not mention it?
You did, but I'm just trying to figure it out.
Yeah, it's Kinfire Chronicles.
Night's Fall.
Yes, Night's Fall. So short setup time, relatively short scenario length. I did not play it, but I did get a pretty thorough description of what's going on with it. Each character has their own deck, and the way the decks are constructed is it's similar to Pathfinder Adventure card game for those who have played that, but basically each character has to have a certain number of each type of card, and the types of cards are color based in this in Kinfire. So you might have to have 3 red cards, 2 blue cards, and 3 green cards in your hero's deck, but you can upgrade those cards as long as you keep that same ratio going in your deck. And then they have other things that kind of mix it up a little bit. So some of the upgraded cards might have more than one color associated with them, so it can count as either one. But there's sort of a deck building element there in between rounds. There's a town phase, similar to maybe like probably not as as advanced, but a town phase maybe like Shadows of Brimstone or Kingdom Death Monster, but it's probably, I wouldn't go so far as to say it's like Kingdom Death Monster, but
sure.
There's an interspersed with town phases where you could do actions within the town and things might happen to you there. So it's a fully cooperative game, but with a solo mode. In the solo mode, you might play 2 characters.
It's by Incredible Dream Studios. It says it's a story-rich, quick-start adventure board game for 1 to 4 players from the makers of Descent, The Witcher 3, Arcane League of Legends. So, and
one of the big things was the narrative was written by some of the writers for the Witcher 3, which was intriguing, right? Because Witcher 3 generally has a very high rating for PC gamers. I haven't quite gotten to it yet, but it's on my list to play. Like I said, I didn't get to play it, but I took a bunch of pictures. I think I took some video. Maybe I'll post those up on the Discord at some point. But it looked really interesting. So I mean, I'm intrigued to see how it plays.
Cool. Well, I had nothing else for Saturday. That was it for me. Anybody else have Saturday stuff?
Nope.
Terrence?
No. My Saturday bled into Sunday, where I flew out at 7 in the morning. But I think we were up like super late, right? And I forgot to eat dinner.
Well, yeah, yes. We were up super late because kept playing Marvel Champions. Which again, if you want to hear about that coverage, we'll talk about it Friday on our stream there, because I think Brant's joining us for that as well, and he was certainly a big part of that experience. So come back on Friday for all the Marvel Champions coverage. But yeah, no, overall, I think it was a good con. It's still not my favorite con. It's too big. There's too much to do for me. It's not as much focused around gaming. As you saw, we didn't play hundreds and hundreds of games. And for me at cons, I love going and playing old games. I love going and playing new games. I don't care about like new hotness or whatever else, or checking out all the booths, which I almost feel like it's too big to even be able to check out everything that's there. So unless you go in with a focused approach, unless you go in knowing what's going to be released, I feel like you're going to miss something at GenCon. And for me, it's just, I don't know, that is not fun. So for me, it's not my favorite con. I love Origins better. I love PAX better. And honestly, I love my local cons probably even better than any of those. So that's my thoughts. But how about you guys?
I happen to like Gen Con quite a bit. I like seeing the new stuff and walking the dealer hall, getting some previews of things that either are just released or haven't been released yet, which is certainly not something you get at a local con. The best you can hope for there is maybe if they bring something back from Essen, if it happens to be after Essen.
I was about to say, EuroQuest, we get more new stuff than I feel like we get at Gen Con, Origins, any of these cons.
I disagree. Origins was just... I'm willing to try Origins again. Origins was a little bit different because we went last year, and it was rescheduled on somewhat short notice, I think, because of COVID. And I think it was a little bit more subdued and chaotic than usual, but it does strike me as not very well organized, I guess. Sure. I mean, we spent most of our time at Origins, not at Origins. So
Chuck called it more amateur than Gen Con.
I would certainly agree with that assessment, yeah. So Gen Con's not the best for playing games, though. That's for sure.
And for me, that's what it's about.
Previews.
Right. And for
well,
me,
I don't need to go to
playing.
A convention to play games, right?
I do, because I don't get to play that much.
Like we play Marvel Champions every Friday.
Yeah, what are you talking about?
I mean, yes, I do play games 2 nights a week. I guess I shouldn't complain, but I don't know. I feel like this Gen Con, maybe again, it's a COVID specific thing, but like at this point, because Mike gets a lot of games early, like I felt like there was nothing new for me there.
I feel like that's a you problem, Peter.
That might be a me problem, though.
You're like, unfortunately I get to preview games anyways because instead of going to a con, they send it to me to my doorstep. So turns out Gen Con is not as interesting because I've already played all the new hotness.
All right. Well,
I will say I thought this Gen Con was a bit lackluster compared to like 2019 and 2016, which are the last 2 times I went. Just because it was, there wasn't a whole lot of stuff being released. And I guess that's due to, COVID, supply chain, all that stuff, but was a little bit less exciting than some of the other ones I'd been to.
I mean, like we said, we got Oathsworn came out. We previewed it in 2019 and just came out right before Gen Con for a lot of people. Or even after Gen Con
and we had it for a few weeks before that. So yeah, and I hadn't heard anybody talking about it. Now, when we played Oathsworn, many people came by and are like, "What is that?" And so that's the benefit of the miniatures, right? Over the standee version. But beside that, like, I don't know. Like, the biggest thing was Planet Unknown. We played that with Colin at
I know a lot
Heroes.
of people ask us about Marvel Champions, man. You don't need miniatures.
That's true. I did ask about Marvel Champions.
There was a lot of talk about Marvel Champions. Like, every time we were playing, people were like, what is that game? And I'm like, really? This game came out 2 years ago. This game's great. Go play it.
Yeah, it came out we found out about the same time we were demoing Oathsworn. So
that was a good GenCon, now that I think back. That was way
2019 was a great GenCon, because we also had the Fantasy Flight in-flight report. Remember those? That was
that was sad.
Yeah,
that we didn't get
see,
that
none of that anymore.
Yeah,
I missed that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with Jerry on my thoughts on Gen Con for the most part. Like, I think it's a unique experience if you haven't gone and you love this hobby. I think if you can make your way out there, it's definitely a like very unique experience. Both the hall, whether you like it or not, depending on where in the spectrum you are on, like either the Jerry or Peter spectrum. But I think seeing it for the first time and kind of going through it can be both overwhelming and also pretty neat to like see all these people like here for a hobby that you love. I think one of the things that's unique about Gen Con for me too is not having, like, I feel like it encourages me not to back games actually, because you can often find the Kickstarter version of the game at Gen Con that they're willing to sell, like the extra copies printed, and you can often get it for the same price. And so it's just like, if you're willing to take it home, it like just feels like you don't have to follow the crowdfunding and other stuff as much. You can kind of just go to Gen Con, and it's not new necessarily as much, but like it might be new to you, right? And so I think there's a lot of that happens at Gen Con that, yeah, if you're a content creator, you're into this stuff, you may not be getting as much new stuff. But if you're, a board gamer, I think, who maybe isn't doing it as regularly, of like following all the things, I think you get a lot of value out of finding new things at Gen Con. And the other part.
Here's the thing for me, though. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but here's the part for me. Like, I spent probably 2 half days walking the hall, and I'm walking with my son, and I didn't finish walking the hall. And I spent so much of that time looking at accessories and art booths and this and that and the other. Whereas I feel like if I go to Origins, if I walk the hall, that's literally all the hot games and all the games, period. Like, I don't know. I just feel like these other cons have a smaller dealer hall. Yes, it's not the spectacle, but you get game-focused stuff. Whereas here, there were booths for like Salvation Army and like all kinds of crazy stuff that I didn't care about. You know what I mean? Like, I do feel like, yes, it's bigger and yes, it's a spectacle, but it's also not as board game focused.
You couldn't just walk past the booth?
Yeah, I mean, I would say what Jerry said. Like, there's the majority of it by a large margin, like I would say 75%, if not more, is board game companies. And there's like 25% that's like the whatever author art creation area that was a section, like in a lot of the smaller booths. But I think some of the other stuff there is like, there are large booths, right? Like where you can go and sit down and try something like Marvel Champions. Like we directed a bunch of people to that on Sunday, right? On Saturday night. You can go try Twilight Inscription. You can go sit you can go sit down and actually like play a bunch of games, even if it's only for a turn at some of these booths. But I saw a lot of people just wrap around things, waiting in lines to do a bunch of stuff at the vendor hall. So I think maybe you're just more jaded and not as interested in some of the stuff. But
well, I think I've exactly disproved my point, because you guys are so far on the other extreme where you're like, oh no, it was great, you get to do all this stuff, and I'm just like, I just felt like,
well, you also booked yourself for a bunch of stuff, right? I feel like as a media, like here you are complaining to me that you had to like buy a badge, like as a publisher and doing that stuff, and like it's just such a, I feel like you're at such an extreme unique position compared to most people who are probably listening to this and like attending, right? Like, it's like they're here for the love of the game, they don't get games sent to them, they haven't tried a lot of things, and they aren't like set up to go to influencer events, they don't they don't like. I felt like you had tons of obligations to go to, and like most people are going to this thing don't, right? Like you just get to go and enjoy it, and like that event hall. If you want to play games, like after 6 p.m. or whatever, it's like literally free play for the rest of the evening till the next morning, right? Like if you want to play games, like there's plenty of space to play, and there's also the JW Marriott has that open. We never made it there, but like there's that room to play during the normal hours of the con too. Like if you want to play games, which you did not make time to do, right? Like you went and did other
and this
stuff.
was a unique one for me as well. So I mean, yes.
And if you want to do RPGs, like there's that, right? Like I think there's stuff for everyone who want to do it. And I think the big benefit of Gen Con for me is like, I'm not going to go to your local con, Peter, right? But like I get to see you at Gen Con, right? Like I got to see a coworker of mine who I had no idea was going until like a few months ago, right? Like he's not gonna go to some random con that I'm gonna go to, but Gen Con brings 50,000+ people together, and I was surprised to see that I knew like more than just like the three of us there, right? Like I end up like meeting and knowing more people than I knew was even there. And I think that's like a unique thing that's special about a large con like Gen Con.
Well, and I'm gonna contradict my own point here and say, and look, I'm Jerry knows this about me. I'm devil's advocate about a lot of things, but I'm going to contradict my own point here and say it is cool that our industry has an event that is this big. And for people who don't take board games seriously or whatever else, or don't know anything about board games, it is cool that we have this event that can bring people together from all across the country and like to one location and say, hey, this weekend it's all about board games. And they're even extending it beyond people who can make it to Indianapolis and doing the online events. There's Gen Can't, there's Gen Con Online now, so like yes,
there's pop up in your local game store too that they did during the pandemic that they're continuing to do as well.
So yeah, I think it is awesome. I mean, Tabletop Day, they tried to make that a thing, and it really left as soon as Tabletop left. But like, this is a cool event for our industry. I agree about that part. But yeah, I mean, for me, I just like smaller, more intimate affairs, I guess.
Well, where was the first place you played Marvel Champions?
And I hated it. I did not like it at Gen Con. I don't even remember who I played, but I think you played Iron Man.
It's because you didn't play with me, Peter.
I played Iron Man.
I think you played Iron Man, which I probably would have liked it more if I played Iron Man, but I don't remember who I played.
Spider-Man.
Did I?
I think so. Anyway.
Which is weird because I'm not a Spider-Man fan. But anyway, yes. We've been way long.
That was the first time we played it, is my point, that you got an opportunity to play it there.
Well, and maybe it's just the spectacle's not there as much for me because, like, you're right. In-flight reports.
Reports? That's the animated version.
Yes.
The reports.
The Spider-Ham version.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree with Jerry. I think this year, probably because of the pandemic and other stuff, like, who even knew if it was going to happen this year or not? Because I felt like they changed it somewhat last minute too last year of like kind of putting it on and just supply chain and other stuff. Like I think there just weren't as many announcements and things. Like I didn't really know as much stuff, but I think I just took the opportunity to go and actually like meet and hang out with the designers and other folks that
that's one of the cool parts. Like I got to know Caleb very well this weekend. I mean, Henry, I said, is a good friend of mine, designer of parks and trails. Like, I got to know him through cons, really. I mean, we played a game online together, but live and in person, it's cons like this, it's cons like PAX EU, that I really get to know these people. And so for me, it is more of a social event than it is a gaming event. And I don't know, maybe it was just that it was such a weird year for me. And such a weird year in general. And look, you say I get a lot of free games sent to me. I get 0 free games sent to me, to make it very clear. Mike gets some free games sent to him, and he brings the best of the best to me.
Well, I'm just saying, like, you get exposure to them, right? Like,
Yes.
that a lot of people aren't privy to.
Yes.
So you're, like, saying, like,
Very
oh, there's that new game. Oh, we already played
Oh,
it.
yeah,
Like,
we already played that. Yeah.
like that's not a thing most people who are coming to Gen Con get to say, right? Like, regardless if it's actually sent to your doorstep or not. So I
Sure.
think you're definitely, like, not like even the super common case. I think as a content creator, you're exposed to a lot more things, whether it's sent to your door or you're playing it on with the designer on like TTS or Tabletopia or something, right? Like, I think you do just get more exposure to stuff, so things just won't be as exciting or new, right?
Well, in general, like, I'm exposed to a lot more gamers as well. Like, when I went to Con of Heroes, we didn't just stay at Con of Heroes. That's when I played Planet Unknown. Mike's never played that one. It's not a super hot, co-op solo game, but like, Colin had played it and he loved the game, right? So he introduced it to all of us. So I do get exposure to other things, just being a member of the gaming community. I feel like you get exposed to some of these things. The more gamers the more stuff you get exposed to.
Yeah, I think Gen Con is a kind of catch-all kind of thing, though, right? Like, if you want to play games, I think you can make that your thing. I know people who go who just do RPG and True Dungeon and stuff like that, and that's what they do. And
I've never
but
done True Dungeon.
you can do that side by side with people who don't care about that stuff as much, right? Like, they're all in the same place, which is kind of cool. So I think there's plenty of people who span that kind of spectrum. But I think if like, it's nice to me that, like, I think if you don't want to do that, maybe Gen Con is not your cup of tea too, right? Like, I think a lot of people who go are also there for the spectacle, even if you maybe limit your time experiencing it.
Well, perfect example during our Marvel Champions game on Saturday, like, they had the cosplay people walking through the gaming hall, and Nick just stopped playing the game completely, turned around, my son Nick, and watched this spectacle go by. And you're never going to get that experience anywhere else. They have huge, like, somebody made this, like, balloon animal dragon that's, like, huge, like 2 stories tall. Like,
yeah, I think that's the Gen Con logo, like the Gen Con dragon.
But you don't get to see that anywhere else. They make card stacking where people are going in, stacking up old Magic the Gathering cards, whatever else cards. They're, like, bending them and making them into, like, towers that are, like,
you didn't want to
stories.
donate your unsleeved Marvel Champions cards for that?
Yeah, so I'm just saying, you're right. There's the spectacle there is amazing. The people there and the opportunities to meet people there is amazing. But I want to play more games, and I guess what you're saying to me is I could have had that opportunity and I just didn't take it.
I think if you did probably less, like, because I feel like you also have obligations as a content creator doing stuff.
Sure.
But, like, like, getting to play Helionox with the designer Tarek was a really cool experience, and I really appreciate being invited to that, right? But, like, that's not a thing that I would get normal exposure to at, like, my local con or something. He's just not going to come to that, right? And I just think, like, it just brings so many different kinds of people together that makes Gen Con unique and special.
Sure.
And you have to kind of make the con what you want it to be, right? But I do think you do get more playing time, right? Like, at cons that are more focused on it, right? Like, if you go to BGG Con, right? Like, that is a convention that is 100% about playing. Like, they have vendors and stuff, but it is such a small percent compared to there's the massive BGG library. You can go borrow games from that and play, and they have the flag system and everything for, like, getting people together to play.
Well, and they have that at Gen Con, and they had it at the stadium, like I said, but for a half day, it's $20. And look, $20 is $20. To some people, it's a lot of money. To some people, it's a little money. But, like, I don't know. I felt like I just wanted that to be included. I guess that's part of what made me sad, angry, whatever else. At PAX, when I had nothing else to do, like, I'd go to the game library and check something out. Here, that wasn't an option. And I guess that's the part that angered me. Like, Saturday night, the last night we were there, we spent a lot of time walking around looking for something to do. And, like, we're trying to get in this demo or that demo or whatever else. And, like, we wasted an hour plus like not playing games. And where I feel like at PAX, at least, even if I didn't play a game during that time, I'd be looking through a library and seeing a bunch of stuff that maybe I've played or never played before, and maybe checking out a game to like read the rules or whatever. And
yeah, if you're going to the PAX library on Saturday night, you're getting slim pickings though, buddy.
Well, all right, touche. But you get my point though. Like that lack of access to an easy accessible library bothers me to some degree. Like at some point,
I mean, part of that's
just
just
buy
how
a
what
ticket.
GenCon is, right? Like
Yeah.
that's just a different con, right? And like Con of Heroes, you're not getting a library to rent games, right? Like,
well, but that's not. I mean, everybody there is to play Marvel Champions. I mean, that's completely different.
I mean, but like each con is their own con, right? Like, and
Yes.
they do certain things well and certain things not as well. Yeah, I have no idea how good the like open play hall, in the Jedi Merit was. We never went there, right? Maybe that was what you were looking for.
Maybe that's true. To be fair,
but
we didn't.
But yeah, I don't know. Gen Con, I think like in closing thoughts for me was, was somewhat off here, but I actually had a great time. Like I said, the designers were a highlight, and honestly, like probably more than anything, like I think the health safety protocols, I was just really impressed with. Like you were saying at the beginning, like I was a little hesitant of like a convention that large of kind of like how would this be enforced, how respectful people would be. One of the comments we got when we went out to dinner on Friday night with Caleb, Brent, and Roy was that the servers said Gen Con is their favorite convention in town because of how nice everyone is and how respectful they are. And so
That's awesome.
I mean, we got to see that like at the con too, of like even the masking, right? And so regardless of how you feel about it, like I think like it was nice that people just did it, and didn't ask questions. And so it wasn't like a controversial thing.
No, not at all.
Yep.
And
And so far, I'm still testing negative, so knock
yeah,
on wood.
exactly. So I think for a convention that large, like being able to do that in this day and age, I feel like seems like a big win for me.
I agree.
So Jerry, you have final thoughts?
No, I agree with pretty much everything Terence said. I think it was a bit of an off year compared to the ones I've been to pre-pandemic. That said, I still had a good time. Got to do some demos of some things that I, hadn't really looked into. I got to play some RPGs, which is something I don't normally get a chance to do.
That's my fault.
So that was a lot of fun. And yeah, overall, I had a great time. And hopefully Gen Con can get back up to its, previous years where, it was a lot of new releases and an endless hype machine for you to get sucked into.
Well, to be fair though, like the games I feel like are the one thing that wasn't back to normal. Because they actually said, I believe, that they had more people at this Gen Con than they had at 2019. Like 50,000.
That's right. I thought 2019 was up in the 60s, 70s.
Yeah, it's still a little bit smaller. It's not quite up.
Smaller.
It's big though. 50,000 is still the biggest con in North America that I'm aware
by
of.
double, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
like, by a lot.
Yeah.
I think PAX might have been up to
PAX was 20, I
25, 30 or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know what they are now.
So, yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. So, I mean, it depends what you're looking for, but Gen Con's a good con, obviously. I mean, for some, their favorite of the year. I mean, the greatest part for me is getting to see you guys. The location being central to the U.S. is always nice. So, yeah, I'll leave it on that positive thought there. That, yeah, new stuff, new people, and, yeah, if you haven't been before, you should definitely check it out. What are you saying?
Also old people.
New like people, young people, old people.
Well, yeah, I'm old, but yeah, that is what it is. All right, everybody. Well, thanks for joining us again for another podcast. This is the longest podcast we've ever had, but yeah, hope you enjoyed it, and yeah, we'll keep this up as long as you want us to. So give us feedback, either podcast comments, YouTube comments, whatever. Let us know what you liked, what you didn't like, and we will try to make ourselves better as we continue. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Hey guys,
What, Peter?
I was thinking earlier that I wanted a mutant music rection.
I think you need to go get off here and start working on your next roll and bite.
Yep, rolling bites.
I think that's the way to go.
I do like
It's gold, Peter. Gold.
I do like to chew on dice. We make the dice.
Hey, maybe you
chocolate.
can do a thing with
dice.
Hungry Gamer. Do a thing.
Ooh.
Rolling bites.
I mean, if we had chocolate dice, everybody would be a hungry gamer.
True.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Night, everybody.
I'm going to bed.